The security footage would later show the exact moment Scarlett Vaughn's world shattered. Not during the accident that stole her legs, but the night a broke delivery driver accused her trusted doctor of slowly poisoning her for 20 years. What started as a routine medical supply drop during a San Francisco rainstorm became the unraveling of a billion-dollar conspiracy that kept a young CEO imprisoned in her own paralyzed body. But before we reveal how a single father with nothing to lose exposed the man who controlled everything, let me take you back to where it all began. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels, and stick around until the end. You won't believe how this ends. The thunder cracked like a gunshot across San Francisco's skyline, and Ethan Cole jerked the steering wheel hard to avoid a flooded pothole. His ancient delivery van hydroplaned for a terrifying second before the bald tires caught pavement again. Rain hammered the windshield so violently the wipers couldn't keep up. Come on, he muttered, squinting through the downpour at the GPS mounted to his cracked dashboard with duct tape. The screen flickered. The address glowed in the upper corner, 2847 Pacific Heights Boulevard. Pacific Heights. Of course it was Pacific Heights. Ethan had been driving for MediRush deliveries for 8 months now, and he'd learned that the worst weather always came with the richest addresses. It was like the universe had a sick sense of humor. The nights when he could barely afford gas were the nights he had to climb the hills where people heated their driveways. His phone buzzed in the cup holder. He grabbed it without looking, already knowing who it was. "Dad?" His daughter's voice was small and scratchy. "Dad, I don't feel good." Ethan's chest tightened. He wedged the phone between his shoulder and ear while navigating a sharp turn. "I know, sweetheart. Did you take your medicine?" "Mrs. Chen gave it to me." A pause. "It tastes gross." "I know it does." He forced cheerfulness into his voice even though exhaustion sat on his shoulders like concrete. "But you took it like a brave girl, right?" "Yeah." Another wet cough rattled through the speaker. "When are you coming home?" Ethan checked the clock. 9:47 p.m. He'd been on the road since 6 that morning. "Soon, Lily. Real soon. Just one more delivery, okay? Big fancy house on the hill. In and out, then I'm heading straight back." "Promise?" "Promise. Now let me talk to Mrs. Chen." The phone rustled as his 7-year-old daughter handed it to their elderly neighbor. Mrs. Chen's kind but worried voice came through. "She's running warm again, Ethan. Not too high, but—" I know. He rubbed his eyes with one hand. "There's children's ibuprofen in the bathroom cabinet, top shelf, behind the cotton balls. Can you give her half a dose?" "Of course, but Ethan, she really should see—" "I know." His voice came out sharper than he intended. He softened it. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Chen, I know. I'm working on it. I just need a few more weeks to save up for the copay. The insurance company is still fighting us on the specialist referral." Mrs. Chen sighed. She'd been their neighbor since before Lily was born, back when Ethan had a real job and health insurance that actually covered things, back when his wife was still alive. "Just be safe out there. This weather is awful." "Always am." He ended the call and tossed the phone back into the cup holder. The GPS announced his destination was ahead on the right. Ethan leaned forward, trying to see through the rain. Then the house appeared. House wasn't the right word. Fortress, maybe. Or monument. The Vaughn estate rose from the hilltop like something out of a dystopian movie, all sharp angles and floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped in steel and glass that reflected the storm clouds. Security lights illuminated perfectly manicured grounds surrounded by a 12-foot iron fence. Even in the downpour, Ethan could see the place probably cost more than he'd earn in 10 lifetimes. He pulled up to the gate and rolled down his window. Rain immediately soaked his arm as he reached for the intercom button. "MediRush delivery," he called out. Static crackled. Then a clipped professional voice. "Drive through. Follow the circular drive to the main entrance. Do not deviate from the path." The gate rolled open with expensive silence. Ethan drove slowly up the winding driveway, acutely aware that his rusted van with the dented bumper and taped-on mirrors looked like trash next to the 3 luxury cars parked in the side garage. A Tesla, a Porsche, something Italian he couldn't even name. He parked near the front entrance and killed the engine. The van shuddered once before going quiet. The delivery manifest said this was a priority rush order. Medical supplies for a Miss Scarlett Vaughn. Signature required. Fragile. Handle with extreme care. Ethan grabbed his waterproof jacket from the passenger seat and pulled it on. Then he climbed into the back of the van where dozens of packages were secured with cargo nets. The Vaughn order sat in its own temperature-controlled case, a sleek black box about the size of a briefcase, locked with a digital seal. He checked the label. Neurological medication, compound suppressants, injection-based therapy supplements. Heavy stuff. Expensive stuff. Ethan carefully lifted the case and climbed out into the storm. The rain hit him like a physical wall. He ducked his head and jogged toward the massive front doors, trying to keep the case dry under his jacket. His boots splashed through puddles that probably cost more to install than his rent. He was halfway up the marble steps when his foot caught on something. A decorative edge, a drainage grate. He couldn't tell. And suddenly, he was falling forward. Time slowed down in that horrible way it does when you know something terrible is about to happen and you can't stop it. Ethan twisted his body, trying to protect the case, but his shoulder slammed into the wet marble and the case flew from his grip. It hit the ground hard. The digital lock popped open. Glass vials tumbled out onto the stone steps. No, no, no! Ethan scrambled forward on his knees, trying to catch them. 3 vials shattered immediately. The clear liquid inside mixed with rainwater and disappeared into the drainage system. 4 more rolled toward the edge of the steps. Ethan lunged and managed to grab 2. The other 2 bounced down the steps and exploded on the driveway below. Shit! He sat there in the rain, staring at the broken glass, watching thousands of dollars in medication wash away. His hands were shaking. Shit, shit, shit. The front doors opened. A man stood backlit in the doorway, tall, lean, wearing an expensive charcoal suit despite the late hour. His dark hair was silver at the temples, perfectly styled. He looked down at Ethan with the kind of cold assessment usually reserved for insects. "What," the man said slowly, "is happening here?" Ethan got to his feet, still clutching the 2 intact vials. "I'm sorry, I slipped." The case, "You slipped." The man's voice was quiet. Dangerous. "You slipped, and now you've destroyed critical medical supplies worth approximately $40,000. Ethan's stomach dropped through the floor. 40, I didn't... There's insurance. The company has insurance for, the patient needs these medications tonight." The man stepped forward into the rain, not seeming to notice or care that he was getting soaked. "Do you understand what you've done?" "I'm sorry." Ethan hated how small his voice sounded. "I'm so sorry. I can call my supervisor. We can get an emergency replacement orders." "From where? At 10 o'clock at night during a storm?" The man smiled, and it was the coldest smile Ethan had ever seen. "These are specialized compounds. They're not available at your local pharmacy." Behind the man, deeper in the house, Ethan heard a woman's voice. "Vincent? What's going on?" "Nothing that concerns you, Scarlett. Go back inside." "I want to see." "That's not necessary." But she appeared anyway. Ethan's first thought was that she didn't look like someone who lived in a place like this. She was young, maybe 30, with dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore an oversized sweater and no makeup, pretty in an exhausted sort of way. His second thought was the wheelchair. She rolled forward into the doorway, and even from the steps, Ethan could see the advanced medical brace wrapped around her torso and legs. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen, carbon fiber and steel, with digital displays blinking along the spine, small motors humming at the joints. "Oh," she said, looking at the broken glass scattered across the steps. Her voice was flat, unsurprised, like she expected the world to disappoint her. "Well, that's unfortunate." The man, Vincent, turned to her. "I'll handle this, Scarlett. Please go inside before you catch cold." "It's my medication, Vincent. I think I have a right to witness its destruction." She wheeled closer to the edge of the doorway and looked at Ethan with eyes that were somehow both sharp and hollow. "How many survived?" Ethan held up the 2 vials. His hands were still shaking. 2. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You can leave, Scarlett said. "Vincent will file a claim with your company. I assume you'll be fired." It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. Something hot flashed through Ethan's chest. He'd spent 8 months swallowing his pride, delivering packages to people who looked through him like he was invisible, accepting tips from people who made more in a day than he made in a year. He was tired. He was broke. His daughter was sick, and he couldn't afford the doctor she needed. And he was so damn tired of rich people treating him like garbage. Yeah, he said. Probably. But you know what? At least I'll still be able to walk. The words came out before he could stop them. Scarlett's face went very still. Vincent took a step forward. You need to leave. Now. But Ethan was looking at the brace wrapped around Scarlett's body, and his engineering instincts, rusty from lack of use but still there, were screaming at him that something was wrong. That brace, he said, is it supposed to look like that? Excuse me? Scarlett's voice was ice. Ethan pointed at the lower section where the support structure met her legs. The alignment. The servo motors on the left side are rotating the wrong direction. See? They're torquing against your natural joint angle instead of supporting it. Vincent's expression darkened. You have no idea what you're talking about. This is cutting-edge medical technology designed specifically for... I'm an engineer. Ethan cut him off. Or I was. Aerospace systems, precision mechanics. I know torque dynamics when I see them. Those motors are fighting her body, not helping it. Get out. Vincent's voice was deadly quiet now. Get out before I call the police. But Scarlett was staring at Ethan now, with something different in her eyes. Not anger, confusion. Maybe the first hint of doubt. Vincent, she said slowly. Is he... He's a delivery driver who just destroyed your medication and is now trying to deflect blame by inventing technical concerns. Vincent moved to the wheelchair and gripped the handles. You're exhausted, Scarlett. Let me get you inside. Scarlett didn't look away from Ethan. But is he right? Of course not. Then why are you so eager to get rid of him? Vincent's jaw tightened. For just a second, Ethan saw something flash across the doctor's face, something dangerous. Then it was gone, replaced by professional concern. Because you don't need this stress. You don't need some stranger filling your head with nonsense while standing in the rain at 10 o'clock at night. He looked at Ethan. Leave, now, or I'm calling security. Ethan knew he should go. He should turn around, get in his van, drive away, and start looking for a new job tomorrow. He had enough problems without making enemies of rich people. But he looked at Scarlett, really looked at her, and saw something that made him stay just 5 more seconds. She looked trapped. Not just in the wheelchair, in everything. In this glass fortress, in whatever relationship she had with the man who was clearly more than just her doctor. Check the motors yourself, Ethan said quietly. The technical specs should show neutral positioning at rest. If they're active when you're stationary, if they're generating continuous counterpressure against your joints, that's not therapeutic. That's destructive. Out! Vincent shouted. Ethan backed down the steps, still holding the 2 intact vials. He set them carefully on the top step and turned toward his van. Behind him, he heard Scarlett's voice, very quiet. Vincent, is he right? He didn't hear the answer. The door slammed shut before Vincent could respond. Ethan climbed into his van, soaked to the bone, probably fired, definitely not getting paid for this delivery. His phone showed 3 missed calls from Mrs. Chen. He started the engine and drove back down the hill, watching the Vaughn estate disappear in his rearview mirror. He had no way of knowing that in 24 hours he'd be back, or that his observation about the brace would set off a chain of events that would destroy several lives and save at least one. All he knew was that his daughter was sick, he was probably unemployed, and somewhere in that glass fortress, a woman in a wheelchair was asking a question that someone very powerful didn't want answered. The call came at 6 a.m. Ethan was already awake. He'd been awake since 4, sitting at his kitchen table, staring at his bank account on his laptop. The numbers hadn't changed no matter how many times he refreshed the page. Not enough for rent. Definitely not enough for Lily's medical bills. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Bill collectors had his number. So did 3 different payday loan companies he'd been dodging. But something made him pick up. Hello? Is this Ethan Cole? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. Depends on who's asking. My name is Rebecca Torres. I'm the operations manager for MediRush. We need to discuss last night's incident at the Vaughn estate. Here it comes, Ethan thought. Yeah, I figured you'd call. The client filed a formal complaint. Loss of product valued at $42,000. Potential medical complications due to delayed treatment. They're demanding your immediate termination and financial restitution. Ethan closed his eyes. Okay. However, Rebecca continued, we received a second call an hour ago from Ms. Vaughn herself. Ethan opened his eyes. What? She's withdrawing the complaint. She's also requesting that you personally handle all future deliveries to her residence. No other driver, just you. Silence. Mr. Cole, are you there? That doesn't make sense, Ethan said slowly. Her doctor wanted me arrested. I don't make the rules, Mr. Cole. I just follow them. Miss Vaughn is one of our highest value clients. If she wants you specifically, then you're assigned to her account. Permanently. A pause. Also, she's requesting an immediate delivery tonight. 7 p.m. Same address. Can you make it? Ethan should have said no. Every instinct told him this was a trap, that the doctor would be waiting with lawyers or cops or worse. But he thought about Lily's medical bills. He thought about the rent check that would bounce if he lost this job. He thought about the way Scarlett had looked at him when he mentioned the brace, like she was seeing something for the first time. Yeah, he said, I can make it. Good, I'll send you the manifest. Oh, and Mr. Cole? Whatever you said to her last night, keep saying it. She increased her standing order by 40%. You just became our most valuable route. The call ended. Ethan sat there staring at his phone, trying to make sense of it. Behind him, Lily appeared in the doorway, wrapped in her favorite blanket. Her face was pale, her eyes glassy with fever. Dad, I don't feel good. Ethan was on his feet immediately, feeling her forehead. Hot. Too hot. Okay, sweetheart, let's get you some medicine. He carried her back to her room, got her settled with juice and ibuprofen, and sat on the edge of her bed until she fell back asleep. Her breathing was shallow and raspy. She needed a specialist. She needed treatment. She needed a father who could afford to take care of her. Ethan looked at his phone, at the message from MediRush confirming tonight's delivery. 7 p.m. The Vaughn estate. Whatever was happening up on that hill, whatever reason Scarlett had for requesting him specifically, he was going to find out. Diamonds. The weather was clear that night. No rain, no drama, just the soft glow of sunset over San Francisco as Ethan drove back up Pacific Heights Boulevard. The gate opened without him having to announce himself. He drove up the circular drive and parked in the same spot as before. This time the delivery was smaller, a single temperature-controlled case. Ethan checked the manifest. Neurological compound therapy. Same as before, but a different formula. Rush delivery. Signature required. He walked up the marble steps, careful to avoid the spot where he'd slipped. The broken glass had been cleaned away. You'd never know anything had happened. He rang the doorbell. The door opened immediately, but it wasn't Vincent. It was Scarlett. She sat in her wheelchair alone, backlit by the warm interior lights of the house. She wore jeans and a simple black t-shirt. Her hair was down. She looked younger somehow, and tired. Mr. Cole, she said, thank you for coming. Just doing my job, Ms. Vaughn. Ethan held out the case. I need your signature. Of course. She rolled backward. Come inside, please. Ethan hesitated. That's not really protocol. I'm making it protocol. She looked up at him. Please, I need to talk to you, privately. Every rational part of Ethan's brain told him to politely decline, get the signature, and leave. But something in her voice made him step inside. The door closed behind him with a soft click. The interior of the house was exactly what he'd expected. Minimalist, expensive, cold. Everything was steel and glass and sharp edges. It felt more like a museum than a home, or a prison. Scarlett led him through the foyer into a massive living room dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The view was stunning. The room itself felt empty. Vincent isn't here, she said, as if reading his mind. He has surgery at the hospital tonight. We have about 2 hours before he returns. Ms. Vaughn, I don't think... Scarlett, please. She turned her wheelchair to face him. And I need you to tell me the truth about what you said last night, about the brace. Ethan set down the delivery case. I'm not a doctor. I shouldn't have... You're an engineer. She gestured to a laptop sitting on the coffee table. I looked you up. Ethan Cole, MIT graduate. specialized in aerospace systems and biomechanical interface design. You worked for Stellar Dynamics for 6 years before they downsized their engineering division. You're completely overqualified to be a delivery driver." Ethan felt his face flush. "Yeah, well, life happens." "Why didn't you find another engineering job?" "Because my wife got sick." The words came out flat. "Cancer. Stage 4. By the time they caught it, it was everywhere. She died 8 months after diagnosis, left me with medical debt and a daughter who inherited her autoimmune condition." He met Scarlett's eyes. "So I take whatever work I can get. Any other questions?" Scarlett's expression softened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You didn't cause it." Ethan picked up the delivery case again. "Look, if that's all, show me." Scarlett's voice was quiet but firm. "Show me what you saw. In the brace." "I'm not qualified." "You're more qualified than you think." She rolled closer. "Please, Vincent has been my doctor for 20 years, since the accident. He's the only person I've trusted with my recovery. But last night, you looked at this brace for 30 seconds and saw something wrong." Her hands gripped the armrests of her wheelchair. "I need to know if you're right." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Then he sighed and knelt down beside the wheelchair. "Okay. May I?" Scarlett nodded. Ethan carefully examined the brace. Up close, it was even more sophisticated than he'd thought. The main structure was custom-molded carbon fiber, fitted precisely to her spine and legs. Digital sensors ran along the length, monitoring position and pressure. Small servo motors at each major joint provided assistance and support, or they were supposed to. "There," Ethan said, pointing to the left hip joint. "See the motor assembly?" Scarlett leaned forward to look. "What about it?" "In a normal support brace, the motor would activate only when you try to move. It assists the motion, but this one..." He gently touched the housing. The motor was running, constantly. "Feel that?" Scarlett's eyes widened. "It's vibrating. It's active, which means it's applying constant pressure." Ethan traced the mounting points. "And look at the angle. It's rotated about 15 degrees off from your natural hip alignment. So instead of supporting your joint, it's creating continuous resistance." "But why would..." Scarlett's voice trailed off. Ethan moved to the knee joints. "Same problem. The motors were all active, all misaligned by slight but significant degrees. It's subtle. You probably wouldn't feel it as pain, just constant pressure, fatigue, like your legs are trying to move through mud." Vincent said that was normal, that it was part of the therapy, building strength through resistance. "Maybe. I don't know the medical theory." Ethan sat back on his heels. "But from an engineering perspective, this isn't building strength. It's preventing movement entirely. Your muscles can't develop if they're fighting against mechanical resistance every second of every day." Scarlett was very still. "How long have you noticed this?" "I saw it last night, the first time I looked at you." "I mean, how long would it take for this to cause damage?" Ethan hesitated. "I don't know. Years, probably. Constant low-grade resistance would prevent muscle development, sure, but it wouldn't cause immediate harm, just progressive weakness." 20 years, Scarlett whispered. "I've been wearing variations of this brace for 20 years. The silence stretched between them. Finally, Ethan said carefully, "There could be legitimate medical reasons for this design. You should get a second opinion from another specialist." "Vincent is the specialist." Scarlett's voice was hollow. "He designed this brace specifically for me. He's published papers on it. It's considered revolutionary in spinal injury recovery." "Then maybe I'm wrong." "You're not wrong." Scarlett looked up at him, and her eyes were sharp now, calculating. "Last night, after you left, I asked Vincent about the motors. He said they were functioning perfectly. Then he gave me an injection to help me sleep. I woke up 12 hours later." Ethan felt cold. "He sedated you." "He's done that before. When I asked too many questions, when I pushed too hard about trying new treatments." Her hands clenched. "I always thought he was just being protective, worried about my stress levels." "Miss Vaughn." "Scarlett." "Scarlett, if you think your doctor is doing something wrong, you need to report him. Get another physician to examine you, but you can't just take my word for it. I'm a delivery driver who looked at your brace for 5 minutes. You're an engineer who saw in 5 minutes what I've missed for 20 years. Scarlett rolled over to the windows, staring out at the city lights. Do you know what happened to me? The accident? No. I was 10 years old. My parents were driving me to a piano recital. Black ice on the highway. We hit a barrier at 60 miles an hour. Her voice was flat, reciting facts. They died instantly. I was thrown from the car, crushed vertebrae, severed nerves, multiple compound fractures. The doctors said I'd never walk again. I'm sorry. Vincent was the neurosurgeon who operated on me. He was young then, brilliant, ambitious. He told me he could help me recover. Not fully, he was honest about that, but enough to have a life. She touched the brace. He's been with me ever since, through every surgery, every therapy session, every experimental treatment. When I turned 18 and inherited my parents' company, he helped me run it. When I wanted to give up, he kept me going. He sounds dedicated. He's been everything to me. Scarlett turned back to face Ethan. Which is why I need to know if he's been lying to me for 20 years. Ethan didn't know what to say. Scarlett reached for her laptop and opened it. I have complete access to all of my medical files. Vincent keeps meticulous records. If there's evidence of anything wrong, it would be here. You should have another doctor review those files. I don't trust other doctors. Vincent made sure of that. Scarlett's smile was bitter. He's the best in his field. Everyone else defers to his expertise. But you're not a doctor. You're an engineer. You see mechanics, not medicine. She pulled up a series of documents and rotated the laptop toward Ethan. He looked at the screen. Medical scans, surgical reports, therapy logs going back 2 decades. I can't interpret these, he said. I wouldn't know what to look for. Then look at this. Scarlett opened another file. These are the technical specifications for the brace, the engineering schematics that Vincent submitted to the Medical Device Approval Board. Ethan leaned in. Now this he could read. The design documents were incredibly detailed. Servo motor specifications, torque calculations, power distribution, sensor placement, and something was very, very wrong. These specs, Ethan said slowly, show the motors calibrated for neutral support. 0 resistance at rest. They should only activate during attempted movement, providing assistance. But they're not doing that. No, the brace you're wearing is generating constant resistance, which means either it's malfunctioning or it was deliberately modified after approval. Ethan looked at her. You can't know that. Look at the date on these specs. Scarlett pointed at the screen. Submitted 8 years ago, but Vincent has upgraded the brace 17 times since then. Each time he tells me it's an improvement. Better motors, more sensitive sensors, advanced programming. Did you keep the old versions? No, Vincent always disposed of them. Medical waste protocols. Of course he did, Ethan thought. Scarlett opened another file. But I have the programming logs. Every upgrade is documented. And look, she scrolled through pages of code. I'm not an engineer, but even I can see these modifications are changing the motor behavior, making them more active, more resistant. Ethan scanned the code. She was right. Each successive version increased the baseline motor activity, gradually, almost imperceptibly, like someone was slowly turning up the resistance, year after year, making sure the patient never got stronger, making sure she never walked. This doesn't make sense, Ethan said. What would be the point? If he wanted to keep you paralyzed, why go through the charade of treatment at all? Scarlett was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, because paralyzed heirs don't run companies. I do. I've grown Vaughn Biomed from a small medical device manufacturer into a $3 billion healthcare corporation. We develop treatments, fund research, manufacture pharmaceuticals. She looked at Ethan. And Vincent is chief medical officer. He approves every project. He controls all the medical research budgets. You think he's using your company for something? I think he needs me functional enough to sign papers and attend board meetings, but not functional enough to leave this house without him. Scarlett's voice shook slightly. I think he's kept me trapped in this chair because a CEO in a wheelchair needs a doctor she can trust, and a doctor she trusts can control everything. Ethan sat back. This is insane. If what you're saying is true, if he's been deliberately preventing your recovery for 20 years, that's not just malpractice. That's criminal. You need to report this to the medical board, to the police. See, and tell them what? That my trusted physician of 20 years might be running motors at the wrong calibration, based on the observations of a delivery driver? Scarlett shook her head. Vincent is respected, published, connected. I'm a recluse who rarely leaves this house. Who do you think they'd believe? She had a point. Besides, Scarlett continued, if I'm wrong, if there's a legitimate explanation, I'll have destroyed the reputation of the only person who's ever cared about me. And if you're right, then I've been a prisoner in my own body for 20 years, and the man I trusted most in the world is the one who put me there. Silence. Finally, Ethan said, What do you want from me? Help me find proof, real proof, something concrete enough that even Vincent can't explain away. Scarlett closed the laptop. You see things I can't see. You understand the mechanics. And you have no reason to lie to me. I have every reason to run away from this mess. But you won't. Scarlett met his eyes. Because you're not the kind of person who walks away when someone needs help. You proved that last night. Last night, I dropped $40,000 worth of medication on your doorstep. Last night, you told me a truth no one else had the courage to say. Scarlett rolled closer. Please, I'll pay you. Whatever you want. I just need someone I can trust, and right now, you're the only person who's given me a reason to question the life I've been living. Ethan thought about Lily, asleep in their small apartment, her medical bills stacking up on his kitchen table. He thought about the money he desperately needed. He thought about how easy it would be to say yes. He thought about how much danger they'd both be in if Scarlett was right about her doctor. 1 week, he said. I'll help you look into this for 1 week. But if we don't find solid evidence, you need to promise me you'll get a second medical opinion from a completely independent specialist. Deal? Scarlett extended her hand. Deal. They shook. Ethan didn't know it yet, but that handshake would change everything. Upstairs in Vincent's private office, a security camera recorded the entire conversation. And 60 miles away in a hospital operating room, Vincent Hale paused during surgery to check his phone. The message from his security system was simple. Unauthorized access to medical files. Location, primary residence. Vincent finished the surgery with steady hands and a smile on his face. Then he made a phone call. It was time to remind Scarlett who was really in control. Ethan left the Vaughn estate at 9 p.m. with a USB drive hidden in his jacket pocket and a knot of dread in his stomach. The drive contained copies of Scarlett's medical files, the brace specifications, and 20 years of treatment logs. Evidence, maybe. Or just data that would get them both killed. He drove home through empty streets, checking his rearview mirror every 30 seconds. Nobody was following him. Probably. Mrs. Chen was asleep on his couch when he got home, the TV playing some late-night cooking show on mute. He touched her shoulder gently, and she startled awake. Ethan, you're back. She rubbed her eyes. Lily's fever broke around 8. She ate some soup and went back to sleep. Thank you. Ethan pulled out his wallet, but Mrs. Chen waved him off. Put that away. You know I don't want your money. Mrs. Chen, your wife was like a daughter to me. Let me help. She gathered her things and headed for the door. That child needs you healthy and whole, Ethan. Don't work yourself to death. After she left, Ethan checked on Lily. She was curled up in her bed, breathing easier now, her fever finally gone. He pulled the blanket up to her chin and kissed her forehead. Then he sat at his kitchen table and opened his laptop. The files from Scarlett's USB drive filled the screen. Thousands of pages of medical records, surgical reports, prescription histories, therapy logs. It would take weeks to go through all of it properly. Ethan started with the brace specifications. 3 hours later, his coffee was cold and his eyes burned, but he'd found something. The original design specs showed a therapeutic support system, exactly what you'd expect for spinal injury recovery. Minimal resistance, maximum flexibility, motors calibrated to assist natural movement. But the modification logs told a different story. Someone had been systematically altering the programming over the past 8 years. Small changes, a few degrees of rotation here, slightly increased motor activation there, nothing dramatic enough to trigger safety alerts or medical board reviews, but cumulatively over time, the changes transformed the brace from a recovery tool into something else entirely. A cage. Ethan sat back, feeling sick. His phone buzzed. Unknown number again. He answered. Hello? Did you find anything? Scarlett's voice was quiet, tense. You shouldn't be calling me. If Vincent checks your phone, he's still at the hospital. Emergency complications from tonight's surgery. He won't be back until morning. A pause. Did you find anything? Ethan looked at his screen. Yeah, nothing good. Tell me. So he did. He walked her through the modification logs, the gradual calibration changes, the way the brace had been weaponized so slowly that no single change would raise red flags. Scarlett was silent for a long moment after he finished. Then she said, I need to confront him. No, absolutely not. He's been lying to me which is exactly why you can't confront him yet. If he's done what we think he's done, he's not going to just confess. He'll deny everything, destroy evidence. Maybe even... Ethan stopped himself. Maybe even what? Maybe even make sure you can't tell anyone. Ethan rubbed his eyes. Look, I know this is your life, your body, your decision. But please, let's gather more evidence first. Something undeniable. Then we go to the authorities with everything at once. Another long silence. Okay, Scarlett said finally, but I want to see you tomorrow. Here, there's something else I need to show you. What? Vincent keeps a private lab in the house. I've never been inside. He says it's for research, developing new treatments. But if he's been modifying the brace, there might be evidence there. Equipment, records, something. How do we get in? Leave that to me. Can you come tomorrow? Same time? Ethan thought about all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Then he thought about Scarlett, trapped in that glass fortress for 20 years, trusting the wrong person. Yeah, he said, I'll be there. The call ended. Ethan closed his laptop and went to bed, but he didn't sleep. He kept seeing those modification logs, kept calculating how much damage 20 years of mechanical resistance could do to a human body, kept wondering what kind of person could do that to someone who trusted them. The next morning, Lily felt well enough to go to school. Ethan walked her to the bus stop, watching her climb aboard with her backpack and her favorite stuffed rabbit. Love you, Dad, she called from the window. Love you too, sweetheart. The bus pulled away, and Ethan stood there on the sidewalk, feeling the weight of what he was about to do. He was risking everything, his job, his safety, maybe even his daughter's future, for a woman he barely knew. But he couldn't walk away. Not now. Not when he'd seen the truth. He spent the day running his regular delivery route, but his mind was elsewhere. At every stop, he found himself checking over his shoulder, watching for expensive cars that seemed to be following him. Nothing. Nobody. Maybe he was being paranoid. At 6 p.m., he dropped off his van at the MediRush depot and picked up the evening delivery for Scarlett. Another temperature-controlled case, another signature required. He drove to Pacific Heights as the sun set behind him. The gate opened automatically. The house looked the same as always, cold, beautiful, empty. Scarlett answered the door herself again. Vincent's at a medical conference in Seattle, she said without preamble. He left this morning, won't be back until Thursday. How convenient. I may have mentioned that I was feeling depressed and needed some time alone. He doesn't like it when I'm emotional, tends to give me space. Scarlett's smile was bitter. Come on, the lab is in the basement. She led him through the house to a private elevator. They descended 2 levels underground, and the doors opened onto a hallway that looked nothing like the glass and steel aesthetic upstairs. Down here, everything was concrete and fluorescent lights. Clinical, secret. Scarlett rolled down the hallway to a heavy steel door with a biometric lock. I'm not in the system, she said, but I have Vincent's backup access codes. He keeps them in his office safe. I've known the combination for years. He never thought I'd actually use it. She entered a 12-digit code on the keypad. The lock clicked open. The laboratory beyond was extensive. Medical equipment lined the walls, centrifuges, microscopes, refrigeration units, computer systems. Everything was spotless, organized, expensive, and wrong. Ethan felt it immediately. This wasn't a research lab. Research labs were messy, chaotic, full of failed experiments and testing iterations. This was a production facility. Scarlett rolled to one of the refrigeration units and opened it. Inside were hundreds of vials, all carefully labeled and organized. These are my medications, she said quietly. Vincent compounds them himself. Custom formulations, he says, more effective than commercial pharmaceuticals. Ethan picked up one of the vials and read the label. Compound neurological suppressant, batch 847, patient SVX1. SVX1. Not a name, a designation. Do you know what's in these? He asked. Vincent explained it once. Nerve growth inhibitors, anti-inflammatory compounds, pain management elements. It's supposed to prevent nerve damage from progressing. Has anyone else ever tested these? Independent analysis? Why would they? Vincent is one of the top neurosurgeons in the country. His treatments are proprietary, but they're effective. I've been stable for 20 years. Stable, Ethan thought. Not recovering. Stable. He looked at the vial in his hand. I know someone. A friend from MIT. She runs a private lab now, does forensic analysis for legal cases. If we sent her a sample, she could tell us what's actually in it. Yeah. Scarlett took the vial from him and slipped it into her pocket. Take it. Take whatever you need. Ethan grabbed 3 more vials from different batches. Then he turned to the computer systems. Can you access these? Scarlett rolled over to the main terminal and logged in using Vincent's credentials. Files appeared on the screen. Research notes, patient records, chemical formulas. Ethan scanned through them, his engineering background useless against the dense medical terminology. But even he could see patterns. Patient SVX1 appeared in hundreds of documents, treatment protocols, dosage adjustments, outcome measurements. And one phrase kept appearing, maintenance of current state successfully achieved. Not improvement, not recovery. Maintenance. He's been keeping you exactly the same for 20 years, Ethan said quietly. That's the goal. Keep you functional but dependent. Keep you needing him. Scarlett's hands were shaking. Why? I don't know. Control? Money? Access to your company? Ethan kept searching through files. There has to be more. Something that explains... He stopped. On the screen was a folder labeled SVX-1 Alternative Protocols. Scarlett opened it. Inside were treatment plans Vincent had never mentioned to her. Experimental therapies, surgical options, rehabilitation programs that other patients with similar injuries had used successfully, treatments that could have helped her walk years ago. He knew, Scarlett whispered. He knew there were other options, and he never told me. Ethan clicked on one of the documents. It was a research paper from 12 years ago about a revolutionary nerve regeneration therapy. The author was Vincent Hale. The paper described successful trials with patients who had injuries similar to Scarlett's, patients who had walked again. This doesn't make sense, Ethan said. If he developed a treatment that worked, why wouldn't he use it on you? You're his patient, his... He stopped as another file caught his eye. Financial records. Ethan opened it and immediately wished he hadn't. The document showed money transfers. Millions of dollars, moving from Vaughn Biomed research budgets into private accounts, offshore companies, shell corporations, all approved by Vincent Hale as chief medical officer, all signed off on by Scarlett Vaughn as CEO. Did you authorize these transfers? Ethan asked. Scarlett leaned forward, scanning the records. Her face went pale. I sign hundreds of documents every month. Financial reports, budget approvals, research grants. Vincent handles all the medical division spending. I trust his judgment. He's been embezzling from your company for years, millions of dollars, maybe tens of millions. Ethan scrolled through more files, and he needed you incapacitated enough to never question it, but functional enough to keep signing papers. So he kept me in this chair. Scarlett's voice was hollow. He kept me trapped, kept me dependent, kept me isolated, all so he could steal from the company my parents left me. Ethan wanted to say something comforting. He didn't know what. Scarlett backed away from the computer suddenly, her wheelchair jerking. I'm going to be sick. Scarlett, 20 years I've trusted him, relied on him, defended him to everyone who questioned his methods. Her voice cracked. I could have walked. I could have had a life. And he took it from me. Ethan knelt beside her wheelchair. We'll expose him. We have evidence now, real evidence. Financial crimes, medical fraud, everything. And what do I do in the meantime? Pretend nothing's wrong? Keep taking his medications? Keep wearing this brace that's been destroying my body? Scarlett grabbed the carbon fiber supports. I want it off, right now. I want this thing off me. We should wait. Get medical supervision, Make sure I don't care. Scarlett was already reaching for the release clasps. I don't care if it hurts. I don't care if it's dangerous. I'm not wearing his cage for one more second. Ethan caught her hands. Stop. Think about this. You've been in that brace for years. Your body has adapted to it. If you remove it suddenly without medical support, then I'll deal with it. But I can't. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. Please, help me take it off. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her. And he saw someone who'd been controlled for so long that the thought of one more minute in that prison was unbearable. He understood. After his wife died, after the medical system failed them, after he'd been pushed and processed and patronized by people who saw him as just another case number, he'd wanted to burn it all down too. Okay, he said quietly, but we do it carefully. And if you start having problems, real medical problems, we go to a hospital immediately. Deal? Deal. The brace had 17 connection points. Ethan released them one by one, carefully, watching Scarlett's face for signs of pain. When the final clasp came free, she lifted the entire structure away from her body. For the first time in 20 years, Scarlett sat in her wheelchair without the brace. She looked smaller without it, vulnerable. How do you feel? Ethan asked. Strange, lighter, like I'm going to float away. She touched her legs tentatively. I can't feel them, but I never could, so I don't know if that means anything. The nerves have been suppressed for years. If there's any regeneration possible, it'll take time. Scarlett looked at the brace lying on the floor beside her, 20 years of her life reduced to a pile of carbon fiber and circuitry. I want to destroy it, she said. We might need it as evidence. I don't care. I want to... She stopped. They both heard it at the same time. The elevator, coming down. Ethan and Scarlett looked at each other, fear sharp and immediate. Vincent's in Seattle, Scarlett whispered. Then who? The elevator doors opened. 3 men stepped into the hallway. Large men wearing dark suits and blank expressions. Not medical staff, not researchers. Security, private security. The one in front spoke. Ms. Vaughn, Dr. Hale asked us to check on you. He was concerned about unusual activity in the laboratory. I'm fine, Scarlett said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Just reviewing some research. You can tell Vincent... Dr. Hale also asked us to retrieve any unauthorized materials and escort Mr. Cole from the premises. The man's eyes went to Ethan. Permanently. Ethan slowly stood up, putting himself between the men and Scarlett. There's been a misunderstanding, he said. I'm just making a delivery. You've been making a lot of deliveries lately, Mr. Cole. Spending a lot of time in private conversation with Miss Vaughn. Dr. Hale finds that concerning. Dr. Hale doesn't own me, Scarlett said sharply, and he doesn't get to decide who I talk to. Actually, Ms. Vaughn, as your legal medical guardian and power of attorney for health decisions, he does. The man pulled out a folded document. You signed these forms 8 years ago, during a period of severe depression, according to Dr. Hale's notes. They give him authority to make decisions regarding your care and well-being. Scarlett's face went white. I don't remember signing that. You were medicated. For your own safety. The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. Now, Mr. Cole, you need to come with us. Ethan didn't move. And if I don't, then we'll make you. The other 2 men moved forward. Ethan's mind raced. They were 2 levels underground, in a private lab that probably wasn't on any building permits. No witnesses. No security cameras that weren't controlled by Vincent. If these men wanted to make him disappear, they could. Wait. Scarlett rolled forward. You work for Vincent, right? He pays you? The lead man nodded. I pay him. The money comes from my company, which means you actually work for me. Scarlett's voice was cold now, commanding. And I'm telling you to leave. Now. Dr. Hale anticipated this response. He authorized us to use necessary force to ensure your safety and medical stability. The man gestured to his colleagues. We'll be taking you upstairs, Ms. Vaughn, and Mr. Cole will be leaving the property, one way or another. Ethan looked around desperately. The lab had 1 exit, the elevator the men were blocking. The walls were concrete, no windows, no other doors. They were trapped. Then Scarlett said, Ethan, The vials. In my pocket. She met his eyes, and he understood immediately. Ethan lunged forward and grabbed Scarlett's wheelchair. He spun it around and shoved her toward the back of the lab while simultaneously grabbing the brace from the floor. "Stop them!" the lead man shouted, but Ethan was already moving. He swung the heavy brace like a baseball bat, the carbon fiber connecting with the first security guard's shoulder. The man stumbled back with a grunt of pain. Ethan didn't stop. He grabbed one of the IV stands, steel pole, heavy base, and threw it at the second guard. It caught him in the legs, and he went down hard. The third man was already on him. They crashed into a table full of medical equipment. Glass shattered. Ethan's shoulder hit the floor and pain exploded through his arm. The man was bigger, trained, professional. He got Ethan in a chokehold within seconds. "Enough," the man growled in his ear. "Stop fighting or I'll—" Then Scarlett slammed her wheelchair into the man's legs. He lost his grip on Ethan and stumbled backward. Ethan gasped for air, his vision swimming. "The elevator!" Scarlett yelled. "Go!" Ethan scrambled to his feet. The two guards he'd hit were getting up, and the third was already recovering. They weren't going to make it to the elevator, but they didn't have to. Ethan grabbed Scarlett's wheelchair and ran, not toward the elevator, but toward the refrigeration units lining the wall. "What are you doing?" Scarlett asked. Ethan yanked open the main refrigeration unit and started pulling out vials. Hundreds of them, thousands of dollars worth of Vincent's carefully compounded medications. He threw them on the floor. Glass shattered, liquid spread across the concrete. "Stop!" The lead security guard was running toward them. "That's—" Ethan grabbed the next unit and tipped it over. More vials crashed to the ground, more medications destroyed. Evidence. Vincent's evidence, all of it ruined. The guards reached them, but it was too late. The floor was covered in broken glass and pooling chemicals. Years of research, gone. The lead guard grabbed Ethan by the collar and slammed him against the wall. "You have no idea what you've just done," the man snarled. "Yeah, I do." Ethan spit blood. "I just cost your boss about $10 million in medications and research. Wonder how he'll feel about that." The man's fist connected with Ethan's stomach. He doubled over, retching. "We're taking you both upstairs," the guard said. "Dr. Hale is on his way back from Seattle. He'll decide what to do with you." They dragged Ethan and Scarlett to the elevator. Ethan's ribs screamed in pain. Scarlett's face was pale but defiant. As the elevator doors closed, Ethan felt the vials still in Scarlett's pocket press against his side where the guards had shoved him against her wheelchair. They might have been caught. They might be in serious danger. But they still had evidence, and that meant they still had a chance. The elevator rose toward the ground floor, and Ethan wondered if either of them would live long enough to use it. They locked Ethan in a second-floor guest room with bars on the windows and guards outside the door. His ribs ached where the security guard had hit him, and his shoulder throbbed from hitting the lab floor. He paced the room like a caged animal, checking his phone every 30 seconds. No signal. They'd put some kind of jammer in the house. He tried the window anyway, testing the bars. Solid. Professional installation. Vincent had planned for this scenario. Ethan looked out at the city lights below, at the normal world continuing without him, and thought about Lily. Mrs. Chen would pick her up from school. She'd make dinner, help with homework, put her to bed. She'd done it before during Ethan's long shifts. But what happened when he didn't come home tonight? Tomorrow? What happened when Mrs. Chen called the police and they started looking for him? What happened when they found nothing because Vincent Hale was careful and rich and connected? The door opened. Scarlett wheeled in, followed by the lead security guard. She looked exhausted, her face drawn and pale. Without the brace, she sat differently in the wheelchair, less rigid, more collapsed. "You have 10 minutes, the guard said. "Dr. Hale will be here in 2 hours. Don't do anything stupid." He closed the door. The lock clicked. Ethan knelt beside Scarlett's wheelchair. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" "No, they just locked me in my room and told me to wait." She pulled the vials from her pocket, miraculously still intact. "I still have these. They didn't search me. Because Vincent trained them to see you as helpless. A woman in a wheelchair isn't a threat." Ethan took the vials carefully. "We need to get these out of the house, get them tested, but we're locked in and they've killed the phone signal. There's a landline in Vincent's office. They might not have disabled it. He needs it for hospital calls. Can you get to it?" Maybe, if I can convince the guards I need something from there. Medicine, files, something. Scarlett met his eyes. But even if I make the call, who do we call? The police? Vincent has connections with half the department. He donates to their charity events. Ethan thought fast. My friend from MIT, the one who runs the forensic lab. Her name is Dr. Sarah Chen. If we can get her these vials, she can analyze them overnight and have results by morning. How does that help us if we're trapped here? Because if Vincent does something to us, she'll have evidence, a reason to go to the authorities. She's careful, paranoid even. She'll know something's wrong if I send her samples and then disappear. Scarlett was quiet for a moment. You're talking about insurance, in case he kills us. Yeah, that's a terrible plan. You have a better one? She didn't. Scarlett wheeled to the door and knocked. After a moment, it opened. The guard looked down at her. I need my medication, Scarlett said. Her voice was weak, trembling. The evening dose. It's in Vincent's office, in the locked cabinet. I have the key. The guard hesitated. Dr. Hale said, Dr. Hale isn't here, and if I have a seizure because I missed my medication, he's going to be very unhappy with whoever let that happen. Scarlett clutched her stomach. Please, I'm already feeling the withdrawal. It's going to get worse. The guard looked uncomfortable. I'll get it for you. Tell me where... The cabinet has a biometric lock. My fingerprint. You can't access it without me. Scarlett's breathing was getting faster, more panicked. Real or performance, Ethan couldn't tell. Please, I just need 5 minutes. The guard considered. Then he pulled out his radio. Boss wants me to escort Ms. Vaughn to Dr. Hale's office. Medical necessity. The radio crackled. Another voice responded. Make it quick, and don't let Cole out of that room. The guard grabbed Scarlett's wheelchair and pushed her out. The door locked behind them. Ethan was alone. He went back to pacing, counting the seconds. Scarlett had 10 minutes, maybe 15 before they'd get suspicious. She had to reach the landline, call Sarah, explain the situation, arrange a pickup location for the vials, all without the guards noticing. It was impossible. Ethan checked his phone again, still no signal. He tried to remember Sarah's number. They'd been close in grad school, stayed in touch over the years. She'd been at his wife's funeral. She'd sent presents when Lily was born. But her number wasn't in his memory. It was in his phone's contacts, useless without a signal. Unless... Ethan opened his phone's settings and turned off the cellular connection entirely. Then he activated the emergency bypass mode, a feature designed to let phones make emergency calls even without normal service. The screen flickered. A weak signal appeared. Not enough for a regular call, but maybe enough for a text. Ethan pulled up his contacts and found Sarah's number. He started typing. Sarah, it's Ethan. I'm in serious trouble. Locked in house at 2847 Pacific Heights Boulevard. Man named Vincent Hale, neurosurgeon, has been keeping patient paralyzed for 20 years to embezzle from her company. We have medication samples that prove it. Need you to analyze them ASAP. If you don't hear from me by tomorrow morning, go to the FBI. This is not a joke. He hit send. The message sat there, trying to push through the weak signal. The sending indicator spun and spun. Then, message failed to send. Come on, Ethan muttered. He tried again, failed, again. The door burst open. The guard grabbed Ethan by the collar and slammed him against the wall. What are you doing? Nothing, just... The guard ripped the phone from Ethan's hand, looked at the screen, saw the unsent message. His fist connected with Ethan's face. Pain exploded across Ethan's cheekbone. He tasted blood. You stupid... The guard hit him again. You think you're clever? Ethan's vision swam. He heard the guard on the radio, calling for backup, saying something about a security breach. Then Scarlett's voice in the hallway, sharp and commanding. Get away from him! Now! The guard dropped Ethan and turned. Ms. Vaughn, you need to go back to your... I said get away from him. Scarlett was in the doorway, and she wasn't alone. Behind her wheelchair stood a woman Ethan had never seen before, tall, older, wearing a housekeeper's uniform. She held a landline phone in one hand. I've called the police, the woman said calmly. They're on their way. The guard froze. Mrs. Kovach, you don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly. You're holding Ms. Vaughn prisoner in her own home. You're assaulting a guest. That's illegal last time I checked. Dr. Hale authorized Ismaha. Dr. Hale isn't here, and he doesn't own this house. Ms. Vaughn does. The housekeeper's voice was steel. Now step away from that young man before I tell the police you resisted. The guard looked between them, calculating. Then his radio crackled. Stand down! The voice was cold, authoritative. Let them go. Dr. Hale is 5 minutes out. He'll handle this personally. The guard stepped back, his face dark with anger. Ethan pulled himself up, his face throbbing. Scarlett wheeled forward and grabbed his arm. Can you walk? She asked quietly. Yeah, I think so. The housekeeper, Mrs. Kovach, was already moving. This way, quickly. She led them down the hallway to a service elevator Ethan hadn't known existed. They descended to the ground floor and emerged in the kitchen, a massive space of stainless steel and marble that looked like it had never been used. I didn't actually call the police, Mrs. Kovach said as she moved to the back door. But they believed me, which bought you time. Why are you helping us? Scarlett asked. Because I've worked in this house for 15 years and I'm not blind. Mrs. Kovach unlocked the door. I've watched Dr. Hale control every aspect of your life. I've seen him keep you isolated, dependent. I wanted to say something, but you were afraid, Scarlett finished. I was a coward, but I'm not letting him hurt you anymore. She pushed the door open. Rain had started falling again, a light drizzle that made the outdoor lights hazy. There's a maintenance gate at the east corner of the property. The code is 4739. It leads to a service road. Come with us, Ethan said. No, someone needs to stay and slow them down. Make them think you're still in the house. Mrs. Kovach pressed something into Scarlett's hand. A car key. My car is parked in the staff lot. Gray Honda Civic. It's old, but it runs. Take it. Mrs. Kovach, but go, now, before Dr. Hale gets here. They went. Ethan pushed Scarlett's wheelchair through the rain, moving as fast as he could across the manicured grounds. His ribs screamed with every step. His face throbbed, but he didn't slow down. Behind them, he heard voices, shouting. The security team had discovered they were gone. The maintenance gate appeared through the rain, a simple chain-link door in the iron fence. Ethan punched in the code with shaking fingers. The lock clicked open. They were through and down the service road before the guards reached the gate. Ethan heard them behind the fence, radioing for backup, but they didn't follow. They didn't need to. Vincent would track them other ways. The staff parking lot was 50 yards down the road. Mrs. Kovach's Honda sat alone under a broken streetlight. Ethan got Scarlett into the passenger seat, then collapsed the wheelchair and shoved it in the back. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely get the key in the ignition. The engine started on the third try. He pulled out of the lot and onto the main road, heading downhill away from Pacific Heights. The rain was getting heavier now, the windshield wipers struggling to keep up. Where are we going? Scarlett asked. She was gripping the door handle so hard her knuckles were white. I don't know. Somewhere Vincent can't find us. Somewhere. His phone buzzed. Signal. They were far enough from the house that the jammer didn't reach. Ethan pulled over and grabbed the phone. The message to Sarah had finally sent. And she'd responded, OMG, Ethan, what's happening? Are you safe? Call me now. Ethan dialed. Sarah picked up on the first ring. Ethan? What the hell is going on? Everything I said in the text is true. I have medication samples that prove a doctor has been deliberately keeping his patient paralyzed to embezzle millions. But we're running from his security team and I don't know where to go. Are you hurt? Bruised. Nothing broken. Sarah, I need your help. I need somewhere safe to take these samples. Somewhere this guy can't reach us. Sarah was quiet for a moment. I have a contact. Former client, retired physician. He runs a free clinic in the Mission District, completely off the books. Treats undocumented immigrants, homeless people, anyone who can't access normal health care. If you need to disappear for a few days, he can help. Can you trust him? With my life. His name is Dr. Marcus Webb. I'll call ahead and tell him you're coming. She gave Ethan an address. But Ethan? If this is real, if you're really accusing a prominent surgeon of medical fraud and embezzlement, you need to be careful. People like that don't just let evidence walk away. I know. I'm serious. They'll come after you. They'll discredit you. They might... She stopped. They might kill us. Yeah, I know that too. Another pause. Then Sarah said, "Bring me those samples. I'll run a full analysis tonight. If there's anything in those vials that doesn't belong, anything that could cause nerve damage or suppress recovery, I'll find it." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. Just stay alive long enough to get here." The call ended. Ethan pulled back onto the road and headed toward the Mission District. Beside him, Scarlett stared out the window at the rain. "I've never been in this part of the city," she said quietly. "Really? Never?" Vincent said it wasn't safe. Too much crime, too many variables he couldn't control. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "He convinced me the whole world was dangerous except for my glass prison." They drove in silence for a while. The streets got narrower, the buildings older, less glass and steel, more brick and graffiti. The rain turned the streetlights into blurred halos. Ethan's phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Then he saw it was a video call. He accepted. Vincent's face appeared on the screen. He was in a car, the city lights passing behind him. He looked calm, almost pleasant. "Ethan," he said, "I think we should talk." Ethan held the phone where Scarlett could see it. "I don't have anything to say to you." "No? Not even after you destroyed 20 years of research? Stole proprietary medications? Assaulted my security personnel?" Vincent's smile didn't change. "I could have you arrested, but I'm willing to be reasonable." Reasonable. That's funny coming from a guy who's been poisoning his patient for 2 decades. Poisoning. Vincent shook his head. "Is that what you think? Ethan, you're an engineer, not a physician. You have no idea what you're looking at. I know embezzlement when I see it. Millions of dollars moved from Scarlett's company into your offshore accounts. Research funding, completely legitimate, all approved by the board. All signed by a woman you kept too drugged to know what she was approving." Vincent's expression finally shifted. Something cold flickered across his face. "Scarlett, are you there? Are you listening to this man fill your head with paranoid fantasies?" Scarlett leaned into frame. "I'm listening to someone who told me the truth. For the first time in 20 years. The truth." Vincent's voice softened. "Sweetheart, you're confused. You're in pain. You removed your brace against medical advice, and now you're experiencing withdrawal from medications you've depended on since childhood. That's affecting your judgment. Stop calling me sweetheart. Stop talking to me like I'm a child. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking clearly for the first time in my life," Scarlett's voice cracked. "You kept me paralyzed. You stole from my company. You controlled everything about my existence because it benefited you." "I saved your life," Vincent said quietly. "After the accident, every other surgeon said you'd never wake up. I brought you back. I gave you a life." "You gave me a cage. I gave you purpose. Without me, you'd be institutionalized or dead. Instead, you're a billionaire CEO running one of the most successful biotech companies in the country. You're welcome." The arrogance in his voice made Ethan's blood boil. She would have been more than that if you hadn't been sabotaging her recovery. Vincent ignored him, focusing on Scarlett. "Come home. We'll get you back on your medications, adjust your treatment plan, address these concerns properly. This man is manipulating you, using your vulnerability. This man saved me from you." "This man," Vincent said, his voice hardening, "is a desperate delivery driver with a sick daughter and crushing debt. He saw an opportunity to exploit a wealthy disabled woman, and he took it. That's all this is." Ethan felt Scarlett stiffen beside him. Vincent continued, "He's probably already asked you for money, hasn't he? Painted himself as your savior while positioning himself to take advantage of your gratitude. It's a classic con." "You're projecting," Ethan said. "That's exactly what you've been doing for 20 years. I have medical degrees from Stanford and Johns Hopkins, published research, a spotless reputation. You have what exactly? A failed career and a van full of packages?" Vincent leaned closer to the camera. "Who do you think people will believe? Who do you think Scarlett should believe?" Scarlett was quiet. Vincent smiled. "Come home, sweetheart, before this gets any worse, before people get hurt." "Is that a threat?" Ethan asked. "It's a fact. You're driving around in a stolen vehicle with a medically fragile woman who needs professional care. If something happens to her, if she has a seizure, a cardiac event, Any complication from sudden medication withdrawal, you'll be responsible. Is that really what you want? Ethan looked at Scarlett. Her face was pale, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cool air. She did look sick. Withdrawal or fear or both. She needs a doctor, Vincent said. A real one. Not some off-the-books clinic run by bleeding hearts. She needs proper medical supervision. She needs someone she can trust, Ethan shot back. And you think that's you? A stranger she met a week ago? Vincent's voice was soft, almost kind. Ethan, I understand you're trying to help, but you're in over your head. You have no idea what Scarlett's medical needs are, what complications could arise from the choices you're making. You're putting her in danger. No more danger than you've had her in for 20 years. Vincent's expression went cold. Last chance. Bring her home. I'll overlook the theft, the vandalism, all of it. You walk away with a generous compensation for your trouble. Everyone wins. And if we don't, then I call the police and report my patient as kidnapped by an unstable individual with a history of financial desperation. I have security footage of you destroying my lab, assaulting my personnel, forcing Scarlett to leave against her will. That's a lie. Is it? Look at her, Ethan. She's terrified, in pain, clearly coerced. Vincent's smile returned. Who's the jury going to believe? The respected surgeon trying to save his patient? Or the broke delivery driver who needs money so badly he's willing to commit felonies? Ethan wanted to throw the phone out the window, but Scarlett grabbed his arm. He's right about one thing, she said quietly. I don't feel good. We're almost at the clinic. I feel really not good. Her breathing was getting faster, shallower. My chest feels tight. And my legs. Something's happening in my legs. Ethan pulled over immediately. What kind of something? I don't know. Tingling. Burning. It's... She gasped. Oh God, it hurts. Vincent's voice came through the phone, calm and professional. She's experiencing acute withdrawal from neurological suppressants. Her nervous system is flooding with signals it hasn't processed in years. Without proper medical intervention, she could have a seizure. Or worse. What do I do? Ethan hated the panic in his voice. Bring her to me. I have the medication she needs. I can stabilize her safely. Scarlett was gripping the door handle so hard her hands were shaking. Don't take me back there. But if you're really sick, I'd rather die than go back to him. You might, Vincent said coldly. You might actually die, Scarlett. Is that what you want? To prove a point? Ethan looked between the phone and Scarlett, paralyzed by indecision. Then Scarlett grabbed the phone from his hand and spoke directly to Vincent. I'm not coming back. Ever. Analyze that with your medical degree. She ended the call and threw the phone on the dashboard. Drive, she said. Now, before I lose my nerve. Ethan drove. The pain got worse. By the time they reached the Mission District, Scarlett was crying, biting her lip to keep from screaming. Her legs were spasming, actual movement, visible contractions of muscles that hadn't functioned in years. That's good, right? Ethan said desperately. That means the nerves are waking up. It means they're on fire. Scarlett's voice was strained. It feels like someone's running electricity through my bones. The clinic was in a converted warehouse, unmarked except for a small red cross painted on the side door. Ethan pulled into the alley behind it and killed the engine. Dr. Marcus Webb was waiting outside, a man in his 70s with kind eyes and weathered hands. He took one look at Scarlett and immediately moved into action. Inside, now. We need to manage those muscle spasms before she goes into full-body seizure. Ethan carried Scarlett into the clinic while Dr. Webb grabbed her wheelchair. The interior was basic but clean. Examination rooms partitioned by curtains, supplies organized on metal shelves, the smell of antiseptic sharp in the air. Dr. Webb got Scarlett onto an examination table and started checking her vitals. Her blood pressure was spiking. Her heart rate was erratic. How long since her last dose of medication? Dr. Webb asked. About 12 hours? Scarlett managed through gritted teeth. And before that? How long had you been taking these compounds? 20 years, Dr. Webb swore quietly. He looked at Ethan. Sarah told me this was serious. She didn't say it was insane. Can you help her? I can try, but I'm not a neurologist. And this... He gestured at Scarlett, at her spasming legs and sweating face. This is beyond anything I'm equipped to handle. She needs a hospital. No hospitals, Scarlett said. Vincent has connections at every major hospital in the city. He'll find me. Then you might die here instead. I know. Scarlett met his eyes. But it'll be my choice. Dr. Webb studied her for a long moment. Then he sighed and turned to his supplies. Ethan, there's a coffee maker in the back room. Make a pot. This is going to be a long night. Over the next 6 hours, Dr. Webb worked to stabilize Scarlett while her body went through withdrawals from drugs she didn't even know she'd been addicted to. He administered IV fluids, pain medication, muscle relaxants. He monitored her constantly, adjusting treatment as new symptoms appeared. Ethan sat beside her the entire time, holding her hand when the pain got bad, wiping sweat from her forehead, telling her stupid stories about his delivery routes to distract her. Around 3 a.m., her vitals finally stabilized. The muscle spasms decreased to occasional twitches. She fell into an exhausted sleep. Dr. Webb pulled Ethan aside. She's not out of danger yet. The next 48 hours are critical, but I think we've passed the worst of the acute phase. He rubbed his eyes. Now tell me what the hell is actually going on. So Ethan did. He explained everything. The brace, the embezzlement, the medications, Vincent's 20-year conspiracy. Dr. Webb listened without interrupting. When Ethan finished, the old doctor was quiet for a long time. I've heard of Vincent Hale, he said finally. He's brilliant, published, respected. If you're accusing him of this kind of systematic abuse, you'll need incontrovertible proof. We have medications, samples from his private lab. Ethan pulled out the vials. Can you analyze these? Not with my equipment, but I know someone who can. He took the vials carefully. I'll get these to Sarah tonight. She'll have preliminary results by morning. And if they show what we think they show, then you'll have evidence of medical fraud on a scale I've never seen. Dr. Webb looked at Scarlett, sleeping fitfully on the examination table. And you'll have painted a target on both your backs. We already have. Then you'd better hope Sarah works fast. Dr. Webb left with the vials around 4 a.m. Ethan tried to stay awake, watching Scarlett sleep, but exhaustion finally pulled him under. He woke to bright sunlight streaming through the grimy windows and his phone buzzing insistently. Sarah's name on the screen. He answered, "Tell me you found something." "I found everything." Sarah's voice was tight with controlled fury. "Ethan, these vials don't contain standard neurological medication. They contain nerve growth inhibitors, muscle atrophy accelerators, and something else I've never seen before. A synthetic compound designed to suppress neural pathway development. In English? He was actively destroying her nervous system, not just preventing recovery, causing deliberate damage." Sarah's voice shook. "This isn't medical malpractice, Ethan. This is torture. This is a crime." Ethan felt cold. "Can you prove it? In a way that would hold up legally? I can document the compound analysis, show what these drugs do to human tissue, provide expert testimony. But Ethan, this is huge. Vincent Hale is a respected surgeon. Taking him down will require more than lab results. You'll need financial records, patient testimony, maybe other victims." "We have some of that. We broke into his lab." "You what?" "It's complicated, but we got some files, evidence of embezzlement that you obtained illegally, which means it might not be admissible in court." Sarah swore. "You need a lawyer. You need the FBI. You need to do this properly, or Vincent will walk free, and you'll end up in prison for breaking and entering." Ethan looked at Scarlett, still sleeping. She'd risked everything to escape Vincent's control. He couldn't let that be for nothing. "Can you forward your analysis to someone at the FBI? Someone who handles medical fraud?" "I have a contact, former classmate who works in the white-collar crime division. But Ethan, once I send this, things will move fast. Are you ready for that?" "No, but do it anyway." The call ended. Ethan sat back and watched the dust particles float in the morning sunlight. Outside, the city was waking up. Traffic noise, voices, the ordinary sounds of people living ordinary lives. His life had stopped being ordinary a week ago when he'd slipped on wet marble and broken a billionaire's medication. Now he was in an illegal clinic with a woman experiencing agonizing withdrawals from drugs designed to keep her paralyzed, waiting for federal agents to investigate a surgeon who'd committed crimes for 20 years without anyone noticing. His phone buzzed again. "Mrs. Chen, Lily's asking for you. Where are you? Are you okay?" Guilt hit him like a punch. His daughter. He'd been so focused on helping Scarlett that he'd forgotten his own child. He called Mrs. Chen. "Ethan?" Her voice was worried. "Where have you been? You didn't come home last night. You didn't call." "I'm sorry. Something came up with work. An emergency situation. Is Lily okay?" "She's fine. Worried about you, but fine. What kind of emergency?" Ethan looked at Scarlett. "The kind I can't explain yet. But Mrs. Chen, I need to ask you a huge favor. Can you take care of Lily for a few more days? I'll pay you back. I promise." "I don't want your money, Ethan. I want to know you're safe." "I'm safe. I'm helping someone who needs it." Mrs. Chen sighed. "Like your wife. She was always helping people too, even when she could barely stand. You two are cut from the same cloth." Ethan's throat tightened. "Tell Lily I love her. Tell her I'll be home soon." "You better be." He ended the call and sat there holding his phone, missing his daughter so badly it physically hurt. Behind him, Scarlett stirred. "Ethan?" Her voice was hoarse. He turned. She was awake, her eyes clearer than they'd been in hours. "Hey," he said. "How do you feel?" "Like I got hit by a truck." She tried to sit up and winced. "But alive, surprisingly alive. The worst of the withdrawal is over. Dr. Webb said you should recover, but it'll take time." Scarlett looked around the clinic. The peeling paint, the second-hand equipment, the opposite of her glass mansion in every way. "This is what real healthcare looks like, isn't it?" she said quietly. "Not marble floors and designer furniture, just people helping people. Sometimes, when you're lucky." She was quiet for a moment, then she said, "Your daughter, you left her to help me. Mrs. Chen is taking care of her. But you should be there, with your own child, not babysitting a stranger's nervous breakdown. You're not having a breakdown. You're escaping 20 years of abuse. There's a difference." Scarlett's eyes filled with tears. "I took my body for granted. Even paralyzed, even trapped, I had money, power, influence. Your daughter is sick and you can't afford treatment. That's because of companies like mine, because of people like me. You didn't know. We'll see. I should have known. I run a healthcare company and I never questioned why families like yours can't access basic medical care. I was too focused on profit margins to see the people we were failing." Ethan didn't know what to say to that. "If I survive this," Scarlett continued, "if we actually take down Vincent and I get control of my company back, things are going to change. Real change. Not just PR statements and charity donations. Actual affordable healthcare. That's a nice idea, but right now we need to focus on staying alive long enough to make it happen." "Right." Scarlett wiped her eyes. "What's our next move?" Before Ethan could answer, Dr. Webb burst through the door. His face was pale. "We have a problem," he said. "The police are outside. They're looking for you." Ethan moved to the window and looked through the grimy glass. 2 police cruisers sat in front of the clinic, lights off, but engines running. 4 officers standing beside them, conferring with someone on a phone. "Did they say what they want?" Ethan asked. "They asked if I'd seen a man matching your description with a woman in a wheelchair. Said there's a missing person report filed by her doctor." Dr. Webb kept his voice low. "I told them I run a free clinic. We see dozens of people every day. I can't keep track. But they're not leaving." Scarlett tried to stand from the examination table and immediately collapsed. Her legs couldn't hold her weight yet. Ethan caught her before she hit the floor. "We can't run," she said. "I can barely move." "We're not running." Ethan helped her back onto the table. "We're going to talk to them. Tell them the truth. Vincent will have prepared for that. He's had all night to build a narrative." Scarlett's voice was tight with fear. "He'll say I'm mentally unstable, that you manipulated me, that I need psychiatric care." Then we show them the evidence. Sarah's analysis of the medications, which we stole from a private laboratory after breaking and entering. Scarlett shook her head. "Vincent's right about one thing. He looks credible. We look desperate." Dr. Webb moved to the back door. "There's an exit through the alley. I can stall them while you—" "No." Ethan surprised himself with the firmness in his voice. "No more running. We have evidence. We have testimony. If we keep hiding, Vincent controls the story. But if we face this head on, we have a chance." "A chance to get arrested," Scarlett said. "Maybe, but also a chance to be heard." Ethan looked at Dr. Webb. Can you be a witness? Testify about Scarlett's condition when we arrived? The withdrawal symptoms consistent with long-term drugging? I can, but I'm not a neurologist. My testimony won't carry the same weight as Vincent Hale's. It's something, it's a start. Ethan turned to Scarlett. This is your call, your life. But I think we have to stop running. Scarlett was quiet for a long moment, staring at her useless legs. Then she said, Okay, let them in. Let's see if the truth actually matters. Dr. Webb went to the front door. Through the window, Ethan watched him speak with the officers. One of them, a woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, followed him inside. She looked around the clinic with professional assessment, taking in the makeshift examination rooms, the second-hand equipment, Scarlett sitting on the table with Ethan beside her. Ms. Vaughn, the officer said, I'm Sergeant Paula Morrison. We received a report that you might be in danger. Are you here of your own free will? Yes, Scarlett said immediately. Dr. Vincent Hale called our department this morning. He said you were taken from your home against your will by... She checked her notes. Ethan Cole, a delivery driver with financial problems who may be attempting to extort money from you. That's not what happened. Then what did happen? Scarlett took a breath. I discovered that Dr. Hale has been deliberately keeping me paralyzed for 20 years in order to maintain control over my life and my company. Last night I tried to leave, and his security team attempted to stop me. Ethan helped me escape. Sergeant Morrison's expression didn't change. That's a serious accusation. I have evidence, medication samples that show he's been giving me drugs designed to damage my nervous system. Financial records showing he embezzled millions from my company. Where is this evidence? The medications are being analyzed by a forensic laboratory. The financial records are on a USB drive that we left at the house when we fled. I see. The sergeant made notes. And the security footage from Dr. Hale's property shows Mr. Cole destroying property in a private laboratory and assaulting security personnel. How do you explain that? He was protecting me, Scarlett said. From what? From being imprisoned in my own home. Sergeant Morrison looked at Ethan. Mr. Cole, do you have anything to add? Ethan thought carefully before speaking. I'm a delivery driver. I met Ms. Vaughn a week ago when I made a routine delivery to her house. I noticed something wrong with her medical brace. I have an engineering background, and mentioned it. She investigated and discovered that Dr. Hale had been systematically sabotaging her recovery while stealing from her company. And you helped her investigate? A delivery driver with no medical training? I have mechanical engineering training. The brace was a mechanical device. I could see it was malfunctioning. Or you saw a wealthy, isolated woman and an opportunity. The words hit exactly where Vincent had aimed them. No, Scarlett said sharply. That's what Vincent wants you to believe. He spent 20 years making sure I trust no one but him, making sure I'm too isolated to question his treatment. Ethan is the first person in 2 decades who told me the truth. The truth according to a man you've known for a week. Sergeant Morrison closed her notebook. Ms. Vaughn, I understand you've been through trauma. Dr. Hale mentioned you recently stopped taking essential medications. That can affect judgment, cause paranoia. I'm not paranoid, I'm not confused, and I'm not going back to that house. No one's forcing you to go anywhere, but we do need to sort this out properly. Dr. Hale has filed a formal report. There are allegations of theft, vandalism, assault. We need to investigate. Then investigate him, Scarlett said. Investigate his private lab, his financial records, his treatment protocols over the past 20 years. We can't investigate a respected physician without substantial evidence of wrongdoing. What you're describing would require a warrant, and frankly, Ms. Vaughn, right now his story sounds more credible than yours. There it was. The fundamental inequality Vincent had counted on. His reputation versus their desperation. What happens now? Ethan asked. Now you both come to the station. We'll take formal statements, contact Dr. Hale, try to establish what actually happened. Sergeant Morrison's tone softened slightly. Ms. Vaughn, if you're truly in danger, we will help you, but you need to understand how this looks. A billionaire CEO with a trusted doctor of 20 years suddenly claiming abuse based on the word of a delivery driver she just met. We need to verify everything. How long will that take? Scarlett asked. Could be hours, could be days. Depends on what we find. And in the meantime, Vincent has access to his lab. Time to destroy evidence, alter records, cover his tracks. If he's guilty of what you're claiming, yes. But if he's innocent and you're making false accusations, then we're protecting him from a malicious attack on his reputation. Scarlett looked at Ethan. He could see the fear in her eyes, the realization that the system Vincent had spent 20 years manipulating was still working in his favor. "We'll come to the station," Ethan said, "but we want Sarah Chen present. She's the forensic analyst working on the medication samples. She needs to be part of any formal investigation." "I'll note that in my report. But Mr. Cole, you should know. Dr. Hale is also claiming you've been harassing Miss Vaughn, making unwanted visits, pressuring her for money. He has documentation of your financial situation, your daughter's medical bills." Of course he did. Vincent had researched everything. "He's lying," Ethan said quietly. "Maybe, maybe not. That's what the investigation will determine." Sergeant Morrison gestured toward the door. "Let's go. We can discuss this properly at the station." They went. Dr. Webb helped to get Scarlett into her wheelchair, and Ethan pushed her out to the police cruiser. The morning sun was bright and harsh, making everything feel too real, too exposed. A small crowd had gathered on the street. Clinic patients, curious neighbors. Ethan saw them staring, whispering. By tomorrow, this would be all over the news. Billionaire CEO in police custody. Delivery driver accused of exploitation. Vincent had already won the narrative battle. At the police station, they were separated. Ethan was taken to one interview room, Scarlett to another. Standard procedure, the officers said. They needed independent statements. Ethan sat alone in a windowless room for 2 hours before anyone came to talk to him. The detective who finally appeared was younger than Ethan expected. Maybe 35, wearing an ill-fitting suit and an expression of exhausted skepticism. "I'm Detective James Park," he said, sitting down with a thick folder. "Let's talk about your relationship with Scarlett Vaughn." "I don't have a relationship with her. I made deliveries to her house. Multiple deliveries over several weeks, spending increasing amounts of time inside her residence." Park opened the folder. "Security logs show you were inside her house for over 90 minutes on 3 separate occasions. That's unusual for a delivery driver." "She wanted to talk. She had questions about her medical equipment." "Questions you, an aerospace engineer, were qualified to answer?" "Mechanical questions, yes. And it never occurred to you that getting involved with a billionaire's medical care might be inappropriate or dangerous?" "It occurred to me. I did it anyway." Park studied him. "Why?" "Because something was wrong. I could see it, and no one else was telling her the truth. Or you saw an opportunity. A wealthy, isolated woman with access to millions of dollars. You're buried in medical debt from your wife's cancer treatment. Your daughter has ongoing health issues. You're desperate for money. I'm desperate for my daughter to be healthy. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? Dr. Hale's statement says you repeatedly asked Ms. Vaughn for money, that you manipulated her into believing her medical care was compromised in order to extort her. That's a lie. Is it? Because I'm looking at your bank records, Mr. Cole. 5 overdrafts in the past 6 months, payday loans, credit card debt. You're drowning financially, and suddenly you're spending time with someone who could write you a check that would solve all your problems. Ethan felt his face flush. "I never asked her for money. Not directly, maybe, but you planted ideas, made her doubt her doctor, created a dependency." Park leaned forward. "You know what I think? I think you saw a vulnerable woman and you exploited her. Classic predatory behavior." "You're wrong." "Then explain the lab. Why did you destroy thousands of dollars in medical research? Why did you assault security personnel?" "They were trying to stop us from leaving, from escaping." "From kidnapping Ms. Vaughn, you mean?" "She wanted to leave. She asked for my help." "A woman experiencing acute psychiatric distress asked you to help her flee medical care. And you did. You removed her from a safe environment, stopped her medications, took her to an unlicensed clinic." Park's voice was hard now. "Mr. Cole, people die from decisions like that. If something had happened to Ms. Vaughn, you would have been responsible. Something was happening to her for 20 years, and everyone ignored it because her doctor had the right credentials. Dr. Vincent Hale has an impeccable record, published research, thousands of successful patients. You have what, a hunch based on looking at a brace for 30 seconds? I have engineering expertise that showed the brace was actively damaging her body. I have medication samples that prove he was drugging her with compounds designed to prevent recovery. Samples you stole from a private laboratory. Samples that prove everything I'm saying is true. Park sat back. Here's what I know for sure. You entered private property. You destroyed valuable research. You physically fought with security personnel. Those are crimes. Whether you had good intentions or not doesn't change that. And what about Vincent's crimes? Embezzlement, medical fraud, 20 years of abuse? If we find evidence of those crimes, we'll investigate. But right now, all we have is your accusation and his reputation. Guess which one carries more weight? Ethan wanted to put his fist through the table. So that's it? He wins because he's rich and connected? He wins because he has documentation, witnesses, and a career's worth of credibility. You have a theory and some questionable medication samples. Park closed the folder. I'm going to be straight with you, Mr. Cole. This doesn't look good for you. Dr. Hale is prepared to press charges. If he does, you're looking at breaking and entering, vandalism, assault, possibly kidnapping if we determine Miss Vaughn wasn't acting of her own free will. She was. Ask her yourself. We are. But between you and me, she's traumatized, possibly experiencing withdrawal from medications she actually needs, being influenced by someone who convinced her that her trusted doctor is the enemy. Her mental state is questionable at best. That's exactly what Vincent wants you to think. Or it's the truth. Park stood up. Sit tight. We're waiting for Dr. Hale to arrive and give his statement. Then we'll decide how to proceed. He left. Ethan sat alone in the interview room, feeling the walls close in. This was Vincent's game, Vincent's system. A system designed to protect people with power and credentials while crushing anyone who challenged them. His phone was still in evidence lockup. He couldn't call Sarah, couldn't check on Lily, couldn't do anything but wait. 2 more hours passed. Finally, the door opened. But it wasn't Detective Park. It was Scarlett. She was in her wheelchair, looking exhausted but defiant. Behind her was a woman in an expensive suit, tall, black, carrying herself with the kind of quiet authority that filled the room. Ethan Cole, the woman said. I'm Angela Harris, Ms. Vaughn's attorney. We're leaving. Now. Ethan stood up. They're letting us go. They don't have grounds to hold you. No charges have been filed yet, and Ms. Vaughn has made it clear she's here voluntarily and wants to leave. Angela's smile was sharp. They can't stop us without actual evidence of a crime. But Vincent, Dr. Hale arrived 30 minutes ago. He's giving his statement now. Angela opened the door wider. Which is why we need to move quickly. Once his version is on record, things get more complicated. They moved through the police station, Angela running interference with every officer who tried to slow them down. She had answers for everything. Ms. Vaughn is exercising her right to legal counsel. No charges have been filed. You have no authority to detain her. Outside, a black town car was waiting. They got in quickly. The driver pulled away before anyone could stop them. Ethan looked at Scarlett. How did you get a lawyer? I called her from the station. Angela handles all my personal legal matters. She's also been quietly investigating Vincent for the past 3 hours. Scarlett's voice was stronger now, more focused. Tell him what you found. Angela pulled out a tablet. Vincent Hale is smart, but he's not perfect. The embezzlement from Vaughn Biomed was sophisticated, but not invisible. I pulled financial records from the company's independent auditors. Records Vincent doesn't control. The money trail is there. Millions moved through shell corporations, offshore accounts, real estate purchases, and false names. That's evidence, Ethan said. It's a start, but it's financial crime, which takes time to prosecute. What we need is something immediate, something that proves medical abuse and makes Vincent an active threat to public safety. Sarah's lab analysis of the medications already received it. The compounds are damning, nerve inhibitors, atrophy accelerators, exactly as you suspected. Angela swiped through documents on her tablet. But here's the problem. Vincent can argue those compounds were experimental treatments, that Scarlett consented, that the science is complicated and open to interpretation. That's insane. They were destroying her body. Legally, it's murky. Medical decisions made by a licensed physician for a consenting patient are hard to challenge, even when the outcomes are poor. Angela looked at Scarlett. Unless we can prove you didn't consent, that you were deliberately kept uninformed about your treatment options. I was, Scarlett said. He never told me about alternative therapies. Never mentioned that other patients with similar injuries had recovered. Can you prove that? The files are in his lab. Treatment protocols he developed but never offered me. Research showing successful recovery outcomes he deliberately withheld. The lab that's now locked down as a crime scene because you broke into it. Angela shook her head. We need something else. Something that proves Vincent's intent to harm you wasn't just medical negligence, but deliberate, ongoing abuse. The car was heading toward downtown. Ethan watched the city pass by, his mind racing. The brace, he said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. The brace, Ethan repeated. It's evidence, physical evidence that shows systematic modification over years to prevent Scarlett's recovery. If we can get an independent biomechanical engineer to examine it, show how it was deliberately designed to cause damage. We left the brace at the house, Scarlett said. No? Ethan turned to her. You took it off in the lab, but the guards made you leave it behind when we ran, which means it's still there. Physical evidence Vincent can't explain away or modify after the fact. Angela was already making notes. If we can get a warrant to seize it as evidence, Vincent will claim it's proprietary medical equipment, protected by doctor-patient confidentiality. Not if we can show it's evidence of a crime. Angela looked up from her tablet. But we need more than just the brace. We need a pattern, other victims, other patients Vincent might have treated similarly. Scarlett went very still. SVX1. That's how he labeled me in all his files. Patient SVX1, which implies there are others, Ethan finished. Other patients, maybe other people he's been exploiting. Angela's eyes sharpened. If we can find them, if we can show this is a pattern of behavior rather than an isolated incident, we have a case. A real case. How do we find them? Scarlett asked. Hospital records, medical board complaints, patients who sought second opinions or changed doctors abruptly. Angela was already typing on her tablet. I have investigators who specialize in medical malpractice. They can search for patterns in Vincent's patient history. That'll take days, maybe weeks. We don't have weeks, Ethan said. Vincent is at the police station right now, building his narrative. By tonight, every news station will be running his version of events. By tomorrow, public opinion will be set. We need something now. The car stopped at a red light. Outside, people crossed the street, living normal lives, unaware that 3 people in a town car were trying to figure out how to expose a conspiracy 20 years in the making. Then Scarlett's phone rang. She looked at the screen and went pale. It's Mrs. Kovach, from the house. Don't answer it, Angela said immediately. It could be traced, but Scarlett had already accepted the call. Mrs. Kovach? Are you okay? The housekeeper's voice came through the speaker, shaking. Ms. Vaughn, you need to listen carefully. Dr. Hale came back to the house an hour ago. He's been in his office, going through files. He knows you accessed his computer, knows you copied documents. Are you safe? Did he hurt you? No. He doesn't know I helped you, but I heard him on the phone. He's calling someone, arranging something. Fear edged into her voice. He said he needs to contain the situation before it spreads. He said, permanent solutions. Scarlett's hand tightened on the phone. What does that mean? I don't know, but he sounded, Miss Vaughn, I've worked for him for 15 years and I've never heard him sound like that. Desperate, angry, dangerous. Get out of the house. Right now. Go somewhere safe. I can't. He's watching all the exits. Security everywhere. Mrs. Kovach's voice dropped to a whisper. But I can get you into the house. Tonight, there's a service entrance he doesn't know about, built during the original construction for emergency access. I have the key. Why would we go back to the house? Ethan asked. Ethan passed. Because everything you need is here. The brace, the lab records, the financial files you didn't have time to copy. Mrs. Kovach was speaking faster now. Dr. Hale is planning to destroy it all. He has a data wipe scheduled for midnight tonight. Once that happens, all the digital evidence will be gone. Angela leaned forward. Can you stop the wipe? I don't have access to his systems, but if you can get into his office, you might be able to interrupt it. Save the files. Or get caught and arrested for breaking and entering, Angela said. Again. It's the only way, Scarlett said quietly. If we wait for warrants and proper procedures, Vincent will erase everything. We need that evidence now. This is insane, Ethan said. We just escaped from there. Going back is our only option. Scarlett looked at him. I know what I'm asking. You have a daughter to think about. You've already risked enough. But I can't do this without you. Ethan thought about Lily, about Mrs. Chen taking care of her, wondering where her father was, about the medical bills stacking up, the life insurance that wouldn't pay out if he died doing something stupid. He thought about his wife, who'd spent her last months fighting a system that valued profit over patience, who'd died angry at the inequality of it all. He thought about Scarlett, trapped for 20 years by someone who was supposed to heal her. Okay, he said. We go back. We get the evidence, and we end this. Angela closed her tablet. Then we do it smart. No improvising, no heroics. We plan this like a military operation. She looked at Mrs. Kovach on the phone. What time can you get us inside? 10 p.m. After the night security rotation starts. I'll unlock the service entrance and disable the alarm on that section. And if Vincent is there? He has a hospital board meeting at 9. He'll be gone until at least 11. 1 hour window, Angela said. In and out. Grab what we need and leave. What about the brace? Ethan asked. Security cameras, Mrs. Kovach said. They have the lab under surveillance now. You can't go back there without being seen. Scarlett's face fell. Then we can't get the physical evidence. Actually, Mrs. Kovach said slowly, there might be another way. Dr. Hale keeps detailed records of all his medical devices. Technical specifications, modification logs, everything. It's all in his office safe. The same safe where he keeps the financial records Ms. Vaughn didn't copy. Can you open it? Angela asked. No, but Ms. Vaughn can. She knows the combination. Everyone looked at Scarlett. She nodded. I can get into it, but Angela's right. This has to be clean. If we get caught, if we make one mistake, Vincent uses it to discredit everything we've found. Then we don't make mistakes, Ethan said. The car started moving again. Angela gave the driver a new address, a hotel downtown where they could plan without being tracked or interrupted. As they drove, Ethan looked out the window at the city passing by. Somewhere out there, Vincent was sitting in a police station, calmly giving his statement, confident that his reputation and connections would protect him. Vincent had spent 20 years building an impenetrable fortress of credibility. Tonight, they were going to break in and tear it down from the inside. The hotel room Angela had booked was on the 14th floor, with a view of the bay and enough space to spread out all their evidence. She'd also arranged for food, actual food, not gas station snacks, and Ethan realized he hadn't eaten in almost 24 hours. While they ate, Angela laid out the plan. 10 p.m., Mrs. Kovach opens the service entrance. Ethan and Scarlett go in. Why both of us? Ethan interrupted. Scarlett should stay here. It's safer. It's my house, my safe, my company he stole from. Scarlett's voice was firm. I'm going. You can barely walk. Then you'll push my wheelchair, but I'm going. Angela continued as if they hadn't spoken. You have 1 hour. Get into Vincent's office, open the safe, copy everything you can to these. She held up 3 USB drives. Files, specifications, anything that proves his crimes. Then get out. What if Vincent comes back early? Ethan asked. Mrs. Kovach will text if that happens. You abort immediately. And if we get caught anyway? Then I have a very expensive legal defense prepared, but let's not get caught. Angela looked between them. This is the last chance. After tonight, Vincent will have destroyed the evidence. If we don't get it now, he walks free. The weight of that settled over the room. Scarlett reached out and took Ethan's hand. Thank you. For everything. For believing me when no one else did. Don't thank me yet. Wait until we actually survive this. They spent the afternoon going over every detail. Entry points, exit routes, timing, contingencies. Angela was thorough to the point of paranoia, which Ethan appreciated. At 8 p.m., Ethan called Mrs. Chen. I need one more night, he said. I'm sorry. I know this is too much to ask. Lily's fine. She's watching a movie with me. Stop apologizing and do whatever you need to do. Is she angry that I'm not there? She's worried, but she trusts you. She knows you're helping someone. Mrs. Chen paused. Your wife would be proud of you, Ethan. What you're doing, standing up for someone who can't stand up for themselves. Ethan's throat tightened. I hope so. Call me tomorrow. Let me know you're safe. I will. At 9:30, Angela's driver took them back to Pacific Heights. They parked 3 blocks from the Vaughn estate, in the shadows between streetlights. Ethan's phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Kovac. Door open, alarm disabled, security rotation complete. You have 1 hour. That's it, Angela said from the front seat. You're committed now, no turning back. Ethan looked at Scarlett. Ready? No, but let's go anyway. They got out of the car. Ethan pushed Scarlett's wheelchair through the dark streets, staying close to the buildings, avoiding the few people still out at this hour. The service entrance was exactly where Mrs. Kovac said it would be. A plain metal door set into the side of the estate's perimeter wall, hidden behind landscaping. It opened silently when Ethan tried the handle. Inside was a narrow corridor, dimly lit, smelling of concrete and old cleaning supplies. Maintenance access, built for staff, forgotten by everyone else. They moved through the corridor to a service elevator. It took them up to the 2nd floor, opening into a hallway Ethan recognized from his previous visits. Vincent's office was at the end of the hall. The door was locked, but Scarlett had a key. Her hands shook as she unlocked it. The office was exactly as Vincent had left it. Massive desk, walls lined with medical journals and awards, certificates of excellence framed and hung like trophies. The safe was behind a painting of a sailboat. Scarlett wheeled over to it and removed the painting with shaking hands. The safe was digital, requiring a 12-digit code. Scarlett entered the numbers carefully. The lock clicked open. Inside was everything they'd hoped for and more. File folders stuffed with documents, hard drives, the technical specifications for the brace, showing every modification over 20 years, financial records detailing the embezzlement, and something else, a leather-bound journal filled with Vincent's handwritten notes. Ethan grabbed one of the USB drives and started copying files from the hard drives while Scarlett photographed the documents with her phone. Look at this, Scarlett whispered, holding up the journal. He documented everything, every decision to withhold treatment, every modification to the brace, every dollar he stole. It's all here. Why would he keep records of his own crimes? Arrogance, control. Maybe he thought no one would ever dare look. Scarlett's voice shook with anger. He wrote about me like I was a project, an experiment. Listen to this. Patient SVX1 continues to respond well to dependency protocols. Increased medication dosage has eliminated questioning behavior. Company performance remains strong under my guidance. Ethan felt sick. Keep photographing. We need every page. They worked quickly, methodically. The USB drives filled with data. Scarlett's phone filled with photos. 15 minutes passed. 30. Ethan's phone buzzed. Mrs. Kovac, Vincent's meeting ended early. He's on his way back. ETA 15 minutes. We need to go, Ethan said. Just a few more files. Now, Scarlett. She grabbed the journal and stuffed it in her jacket. Ethan pocketed the USB drives. They closed the safe, hung the painting back up, and got out of the office. They were halfway back to the service elevator when they heard voices, coming from the main stairwell. Security guards checking the upper floors. Ethan and Scarlett froze. The service elevator was behind them, the main stairwell ahead, no other exits. They were trapped between the two with nowhere to hide. The voices were getting closer, heavy footsteps on marble, radios crackling with static. Ethan looked around desperately for somewhere to hide, but the hallway was exposed, minimalist, designed to prevent exactly this kind of concealment. Then Scarlett grabbed his arm and pointed to a door he'd missed, a linen closet, barely visible in the wall's shadow. They moved fast. Ethan pulled the door open and pushed Scarlett's wheelchair inside, then squeezed in after her and pulled the door almost closed, leaving just a crack to see through. The closet smelled like detergent and mothballs. It was tight, uncomfortable. Ethan's shoulder pressed against shelves stacked with towels. He could feel Scarlett's rapid breathing against his chest. The security guards appeared in the hallway. 2 of them, the same ones from the lab. They walked slowly, checking doors, looking bored but professional. One of them stopped right outside the closet. Ethan held his breath. Beside him, Scarlett had gone completely still. The guard's radio crackled. Anything on the 2nd floor? Nothing. Place is empty. Dr. Hale wants a full sweep anyway. Check every room. The guard sighed and reached for the closet door handle. Then another voice echoed from downstairs. Hey, I need help with the garage door. Motor's stuck again. The guard hesitated, hand on the handle. Can't you fix it yourself? I'm telling you it's stuck. Need 2 people? The guard swore under his breath and dropped his hand. Fine, come on. They walked away, footsteps fading down the hall. Ethan waited 30 seconds before moving. When he finally pushed the closet door open, the hallway was empty. They made it to the service elevator without encountering anyone else. The ride down felt like it took forever, the elevator creaking and groaning, loud enough to wake the dead. The corridor leading to the exit was clear. The metal door was still unlocked. They were almost outside when Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Kovach. Vincent just pulled into the driveway. Go now. They went. Ethan pushed Scarlett's wheelchair through the dark streets as fast as he could without running, trying to look casual, just a man helping a woman in a wheelchair. Nothing suspicious. His heart was hammering so hard he thought it might explode. 3 blocks, 2 blocks. 1. Angela's car appeared at the corner, headlights off. They reached it and practically fell inside. Drive, Ethan gasped. Drive now. The car pulled away smoothly, calmly. No screeching tires or dramatic getaways. Just a normal car on a normal night. Ethan looked back through the rear window. No one was following them. No alarms, no sirens. They'd made it. Scarlett pulled the journal from her jacket with shaking hands. We got it. We actually got it. Angela was already on her phone. I'm calling my contact at the FBI. They need to move on this tonight before Vincent realizes what's missing. He'll know as soon as he checks the safe, Ethan said. Then we have maybe an hour. Angela's call connected. Agent Morrison? It's Angela Harris. I have evidence of systematic medical fraud, embezzlement, and patient abuse spanning 20 years. I'm sending files now, yes, tonight, because the subject is destroying evidence as we speak. While Angela talked, Ethan looked at Scarlett. She was crying silently, tears streaming down her face, but she was also smiling. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. Not yet. We need the FBI to act. We need Vincent arrested before he runs. He won't run. He's too arrogant. He thinks he's untouchable. Ethan hoped she was right. The FBI moved faster than Ethan had expected. By midnight, federal agents had descended on the Vaughn estate with search warrants for Vincent's office, his lab, and all his financial records. By 1 a.m., they'd seized enough evidence to fill 3 trucks. By 3 a.m., Vincent Hale was in federal custody. Ethan and Scarlett watched it happen from Angela's hotel room following news alerts on their phones. The arrest made the late-night news cycle. Prominent surgeon arrested on fraud charges. Billionaire CEO alleges 20-year conspiracy. The coverage was cautious, full of alleged and according to sources, but it was out there, public. No longer just their word against his. They're calling it the biggest medical fraud case in decades, Angela said, reading from her tablet. The U.S. attorney is personally handling the prosecution. They're talking about federal charges for wire fraud, embezzlement, racketeering, medical malpractice, patient abuse. Will it stick? Scarlett asked quietly. With the evidence we provided? Absolutely. Vincent documented his own crimes in meticulous detail. The journal alone is damning. Add the financial records, the medication analysis, the brace specifications. He's done. Ethan sat back in his chair, exhaustion finally catching up to him. What happens now? Now the investigation expands. They'll look for other victims, other patients Vincent might have exploited. They'll audit Vaughn Biomed's finances going back decades. This is going to get bigger before it gets smaller. How much bigger? Medical licensing boards across the country. Hospital reviews? Probably congressional hearings on oversight failures. Angela looked at Scarlett. Your company is going to be under intense scrutiny. The board will have questions about how this happened under their watch. Let them ask, Scarlett said. I'll have answers, starting with firing everyone who enabled Vincent's access. That's going to be complicated. Vincent had legitimate authority as CMO, which he abused. Anyone who helped him, knowingly or not, is gone. I'm cleaning house. Scarlett's voice was firm, stronger than Ethan had ever heard it. And then I'm rebuilding, the right way. Angela nodded slowly. Okay, but that's a conversation for tomorrow. Tonight, you both need rest. Real rest. You've been running on adrenaline for days. She was right. Ethan felt like he could sleep for a week. His phone rang. Mrs. Chen. He answered immediately. Is Lily okay? She's fine. Sleeping. But Ethan, the news is saying you were involved in some kind of federal investigation. They're showing your picture. It's complicated, but I'm okay. I'm safe. I'll explain everything when I see you. When will that be? Tomorrow. I promise. First thing tomorrow morning, I'm coming home. After he hung up, Scarlett said quietly, You should go now. To your daughter. She needs you. I'm not leaving you alone. I'm not alone. Angela's here. And honestly, I need some time to process all of this. Scarlett looked out the window at the city lights. 20 years of my life were a lie. I need to figure out who I am without Vincent controlling everything. That's going to take more than one night. I know, but it's a start. She turned back to him. Thank you, Ethan, for seeing what no one else saw, for believing me when I didn't even believe myself. You did the hard part. You chose to leave. You chose to fight back. We did the hard part, together. Angela's phone buzzed. She read the message and smiled. The FBI just found 3 other patients in Vincent's files, all labeled the same way, SVX2, SVX3, SVX4, all with similar treatment patterns, similar medications, similar outcomes. They're reaching out to them now. How many people did he hurt? Scarlett's voice was barely a whisper. We may never know the full number, but everyone we can identify, everyone we can help. That's because you were brave enough to speak up. Ethan stood. I should go. Let you get some rest. Scarlett wheeled over to him. What you did, leaving your daughter, risking your job, your safety, everything, I can never repay that. I don't want repayment. I just want Lily to grow up in a world where people like Vincent don't get away with this kind of abuse. They won't. Not anymore. Scarlett held out her hand. Partners? Ethan shook it. Partners. Angela's driver took him back to his apartment. The sun was starting to rise over San Francisco, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Ethan watched it through the car window and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Mrs. Chen answered the door before he could even knock. You look terrible, she said, pulling him into a hug. I feel terrible. Lily's still asleep. You should rest before she wakes up. But Ethan went to his daughter's room anyway. He sat on the edge of her bed and watched her sleep, her small chest rising and falling, her stuffed rabbit clutched in her arms. She was alive. She was safe. And maybe, just maybe, the settlement money from Vincent's Victims Fund would finally get her the medical care she needed. Lily stirred and opened her eyes. Dad? Hey, sweetheart. You were gone a long time. I know. I'm sorry. Mrs. Chen said you were helping someone important. I was helping someone who needed it, just like Mom used to do. Lily sat up and hugged him. Are you okay? The question almost broke him. His 7-year-old daughter asking if he was okay after everything she'd been through. Yeah, he said, holding her close. Yeah, I'm okay now. The next few weeks were chaos. Vincent's arrest dominated the news cycle. Federal investigators uncovered 6 additional victims, all wealthy patients Vincent had systematically exploited while serving as their trusted physician. The total amount of embezzled funds exceeded $40 million. Vaughn Biomed's stock price crashed. The board demanded Scarlett's resignation, claiming she should have known about Vincent's activities. She refused and threatened to expose which board members had been accepting kickbacks from Vincent's shell companies. 3 board members resigned within 24 hours. Ethan gave his statement to federal prosecutors, explaining how he'd discovered the brace malfunction and connected it to Vincent's broader conspiracy. The prosecutors wanted him to testify at trial, but Vincent's lawyers knew they couldn't win. 2 months after his arrest, Vincent Hale accepted a plea deal. 25 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. Full restitution to his victims. Permanent revocation of his medical license. The day the plea deal was announced, Scarlett called Ethan. It's over, she said. It's really over. How do you feel? I don't know. Relieved? Angry that he doesn't have to face a trial? Sad that I wasted so much of my life trusting him? A pause. All of it, I guess. That's normal. Is it? I'm 30 years old and I'm learning to walk for the first time. Nothing about this is normal. But she was learning to walk. With the help of real physicians, real therapists, real treatment protocols, Scarlett's body was slowly recovering from 20 years of suppression. The progress was painful and slow, but it was real. 3 months after Vincent's arrest, she took her first independent steps using walking supports Ethan had helped design. 6 months later, she could walk short distances with canes. The physical recovery was only part of it. The harder work was rebuilding her sense of self, learning to trust her own judgment, figuring out who she was without Vincent's influence. She started by transforming Vaughn Biomed. The company's focus shifted from maximizing profits to maximizing access. New programs provided subsidized medications to low-income patients. Research budgets were redirected to treatments for rare diseases that pharmaceutical companies typically ignored because they weren't profitable. And she hired Ethan, not as a delivery driver, as director of biomechanical engineering for Vaughn Biomed's new patient advocacy division. His job was to review medical devices for actual effectiveness, identify when equipment was being designed for profit rather than outcomes, and develop better alternatives. The salary was enough to finally pay off his medical debt and get Lily the specialist care she needed. "You don't have to do this," Ethan had said when Scarlett first offered him the position. "You don't owe me anything. I'm not doing it because I owe you. I'm doing it because you're good at it. You see things other people miss. That's exactly what this company needs." So Ethan took the job. He sold his delivery van, said goodbye to his routes, and started working in an actual office with actual engineers who respected his expertise. It felt surreal, like someone else's life, but it was his life. And for the first time since his wife died, he felt like he was doing something that mattered. 1 year after Vincent's arrest, Scarlett held a press conference. She stood on a small stage, actually stood, using only a single cane for balance, and announced the Vaughn Foundation for Medical Justice. The foundation would provide legal support for patients who suspected medical abuse, fund independent reviews of treatment protocols, and advocate for stronger oversight of physician-patient relationships. "What happened to me should never happen to anyone," Scarlett said to the assembled reporters. "I was lucky. I had resources. I had someone willing to tell me the truth. And I had the ability to fight back. Most patients don't have those advantages. This foundation exists to level the playing field." After the press conference, she found Ethan in the crowd. "How'd I do?" she asked. "You stood for 12 minutes without sitting down. That's the real headline. My therapist is going to kill me. I was only cleared for 5. She smiled. "But some things are worth the pain." They walked together through the building's garden, a new addition Scarlett had commissioned, replacing some of the cold glass and steel with actual green space where employees could take breaks. "I've been thinking," Scarlett said, "about the company, about my role here." "You're not thinking of stepping down, are you?" "No, but I'm thinking about changing how we operate. Less focus on quarterly profits, more focus on long-term impact. It means lower stock prices, unhappy investors, probably some pretty brutal board meetings." "Sounds terrible." "It does, doesn't it?" Scarlett stopped walking and looked at him. "But here's the thing. I spent 20 years being controlled by someone who convinced me I was helpless. I'm not doing that anymore. Not for Vincent, not for the board, not for anyone." "Good. I want to build something that actually helps people, real people, not just shareholders, even if it means making less money." "The board will hate it. The board can adjust or resign. Their choice." Scarlett's voice was firm. "This is my company. My parents built it to make a difference, and Vincent corrupted that mission. I'm taking it back." Over the next year, she did exactly that. Vaughn Biomed became known for aggressive pricing transparency, refusing to inflate medication costs, and investing heavily in research that other companies considered unprofitable. Stock analysts called it financial suicide. Patient advocacy groups called it revolutionary. Scarlett didn't care what they called it. She just kept working. Ethan watched her transformation with something like awe. The isolated, controlled woman he'd met in that glass mansion was gone, replaced by someone who knew exactly who she was and what she stood for. Meanwhile, Lily was getting better. The specialist Ethan could finally afford had identified the right combination of treatments for her autoimmune condition. She still had bad days, but the bad days were fewer and farther between. One afternoon, Lily came home from school and announced she wanted to be a doctor when she grew up. "Why's that?" Ethan asked. helping her with homework at the kitchen table. Because doctors help people who are sick, like the doctors who helped me, like Ms. Vaughn's doctors who are helping her walk again. Lily looked up from her math worksheet. I want to help people too. Ethan felt his throat tighten. That's a wonderful goal, sweetheart. Mrs. Chen says Mom wanted to be a nurse before she got sick. She did. She would have been a great one. Do you think she'd be proud of me for wanting to help people? I think she'd be incredibly proud of you, just like I am. Lily smiled and went back to her homework. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Ethan sat alone in his living room and thought about everything that had happened. A year ago, he'd been a broke delivery driver, drowning in debt, watching his daughter suffer because he couldn't afford proper health care. Now he had a career, financial stability, and hope for the future. All because he'd noticed something wrong and refused to look away. His phone buzzed, a text from Scarlett. Board meeting tomorrow. They're going to try to vote me out. Wish me luck. Ethan replied, You don't need luck. You have truth on your side. Scarlett, truth doesn't always win. Ethan, it did before. It will again. The board meeting was brutal. Ethan wasn't there, but Scarlett told him about it afterward. The investors had demanded she reverse course, return to profit-focused strategies, stop wasting money on unprofitable initiatives. Scarlett had refused. 3 board members had tried to force a vote of no confidence. Scarlett had reminded them that she owned controlling shares of the company and they served at her pleasure, not the other way around. 2 of the 3 had resigned on the spot. They called me naive, Scarlett told Ethan over coffee in the office cafeteria. Said I was running the company into the ground with idealistic nonsense. What'd you say? I said my father built this company to heal people, not to make investors rich. If they can't support that mission, they should find another company to leech off of. She smiled. It felt good. I bet it did. You know what the funny thing is? We're actually making money. Not as much as we could if we were price gouging, but steady profits. Sustainable growth. The analysts keep waiting for us to fail, but we're not failing. Because you're doing it right. Because I have good people working with me. People who actually care about outcomes, not just quarterly reports. Scarlett looked at him. Thank you for everything, for being one of those people. You already thanked me. Multiple times. I'll probably thank you 1,000 more times before I'm done. She stood up, using her cane for balance, but moving confidently. Come on, I want to show you something. She led him to the engineering wing, where her team was developing new medical devices. In the center of the lab was a prototype spinal support brace, nothing like Vincent's torture device. This one was designed for actual therapeutic support, with smart sensors that adapted to the patient's natural movements instead of fighting against them. We're calling it the Freedom Series, Scarlett said. It'll be available at cost to anyone who needs it. No insurance required, no pre-authorization, no profit margins. Just actual help for people who need to move. Ethan examined the brace. The engineering was elegant, sophisticated, everything a therapeutic device should be. This is beautiful work. It's based on your initial observations. The way you could see what was wrong with Vincent's design, we applied those insights to build something right. Scarlett touched the brace gently. Every person who uses this will be walking because you cared enough to speak up. I was just doing what anyone would do. No. Most people would have stayed quiet, minded their own business, protected themselves. Scarlett met his eyes. You risked everything to help a stranger. That's not what anyone would do. That's what heroes do. I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who couldn't walk away from something wrong. That's what makes you a hero. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. 2 years after Vincent's arrest, Lily came home with a permission slip for a school field trip to Vaughn Biomed's research facility. The company had started an educational program showing students how medical devices were developed and manufactured. Can I go, Dad? Lily asked, bouncing with excitement. Ms. Vaughn herself is going to be there. She's going to talk about how she started the company and everything. Ethan signed the permission slip. Of course you can go. On the day of the field trip, Ethan took time off work to chaperone. He watched as Scarlett addressed a classroom full of 10-year-olds, explaining how medical research worked, how devices were tested, why it was important to make healthcare accessible. The kids listened, fascinated. Scarlett had a gift for this, making complex ideas simple without being condescending. After her presentation, she took questions. A small boy in the back raised his hand. Miss Vaughn, is it true you were in a wheelchair? I was, for 20 years. But you're walking now. How? Scarlett smiled. I had good doctors, real doctors who wanted to help me get better instead of keeping me sick, and I had a friend who told me the truth when I needed to hear it. Lily's hand shot up. Was that friend my dad? The classroom went silent. Everyone turned to look at Ethan. Scarlett's smile widened. Yes, your dad is the one who helped me understand that I could be more than what other people told me I was. He does that for me too, Lily said proudly. He says I can be a doctor when I grow up, even though I get sick sometimes. Your dad is absolutely right. Being sick doesn't mean you can't help other people. Sometimes it means you understand better what they need. After the field trip, Scarlett found Ethan in the parking lot. Your daughter is remarkable, she said. She gets it from her mother. She gets it from both of you. Scarlett leaned on her cane, looking tired but happy. You know what I realized today, talking to those kids? This is what my parents wanted. Not a billion-dollar corporation, not profit margins and stock prices. Just helping people understand that healthcare shouldn't be a privilege. You're honoring their legacy. I'm trying to. Some days I feel like I'm failing, like I'm not doing enough. You're changing an entire industry. That's not failing. Maybe. Scarlett looked out at the city. Vincent took 20 years from me, but I'm not going to spend the rest of my life being angry about it. I'm going to spend it making sure what happened to me never happens to anyone else. That's the best revenge there is. It's not about revenge. It's about making something good out of something terrible. She turned back to him. You taught me that. When you could have walked away, when you had every reason to protect yourself and your daughter, you chose to help anyway. You showed me that ordinary people doing the right thing can change everything. I'm not sure I changed anything. You did all the hard work. We did it together. That's the point. Scarlett extended her hand. Partners. Still, Ethan shook it. Partners. Always. 5 years after Vincent's arrest, the Vaughn Foundation held its annual gala. The event raised money for medical justice initiatives and honored patients who'd spoken out against abusive treatment. Ethan attended with Lily, who is now 12, and serious about her plans to become a doctor. She wore a dress she'd picked out herself and spent the evening asking every physician in attendance about their specialties. Scarlett gave a speech about the importance of patient advocacy, the dangers of unchecked authority in medicine, and the responsibility healthcare providers had to empower patients rather than control them. We like to think medicine is pure science, she said to the assembled crowd, that doctors are objective, that evidence always wins, that the system protects vulnerable people. But that's not true. Medicine is also about power, about who gets believed, who gets heard, who gets help. She paused, looking out at the audience. For 20 years, I didn't get help because the person with power, my doctor, benefited from keeping me powerless. That only changed when someone without credentials, without authority, without any reason to get involved, chose to speak up anyway. Scarlett gestured to Ethan in the crowd. Ethan Cole was a delivery driver who happened to notice something wrong. He had no medical degree, no connections, no resources. What he had was the courage to tell an uncomfortable truth, and that changed everything. The crowd applauded. Ethan felt his face burn with embarrassment, but Lily squeezed his hand proudly. After the gala, Scarlett found them outside. You hate when I do that, don't you? She said, smiling. I hate being the center of attention. You know that. Too bad. You're stuck with it. She knelt down to Lily's level. How are you feeling these days? Your dad says your treatments are going well. I'm good. The doctors say I might not need medication at all in a few more years. That's wonderful news. Ms. Vaughn, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever get scared that you'll get sick again, that you'll end up back in the wheelchair? Scarlett was quiet for a moment. Sometimes, but then I remember that I'm stronger than I think, that my body is capable of more than people told me it was, and that even if something bad happens, I have people who will tell me the truth and help me fight back. She looked up at Ethan. That makes all the difference. Lily nodded seriously. I think so too. They said goodnight, and Ethan walked Lily back to their car. Not the old delivery van, but a reliable sedan that didn't break down every other week. Dad? Lily said as they drove home. Are you and Ms. Vaughn ever going to get married? Ethan nearly drove off the road. What? No, why would you ask that? Because you're always together, and she looks at you the way Mom used to look at you in the old photos. Scarlett and I are friends, partners in work, that's all. Okay, Lily sounded unconvinced. But if you did want to marry her, I'd be okay with it, just so you know. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. The truth was, he hadn't thought about romantic relationships since his wife died. He'd been too focused on surviving, on taking care of Lily, on just getting through each day. But lately he'd started to notice the way Scarlett smiled when she saw him, the way she asked about his day, remembered small details, made room for him in her impossibly busy schedule, the way he looked forward to seeing her. He didn't know what that meant. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. For now, it was enough that they were friends, that they'd survived something terrible together and come out stronger on the other side. The rest would figure itself out in time. 10 years after Vincent's arrest, Ethan stood in Vaughn Biomed's main lobby and looked at the wall of photos showcasing the company's impact. Thousands of patients helped, hundreds of millions in reduced medication costs, medical devices distributed worldwide at cost. A hand touched his shoulder. Scarlett stood beside him, no longer using a cane. The recovery had taken years, but she could walk normally now, even run short distances. Remember when this was just about exposing one corrupt doctor? She said. Now it's about changing an entire system. Ambitious of us. Stupid of us, more like. Scarlett laughed. Maybe, but it's working. Medical boards are implementing new oversight protocols. Hospitals are creating patient advocacy departments. Other companies are following our pricing models. Because you forced them to, by proving it could be done. We forced them to. You're as much a part of this as I am. Ethan looked at the photos. Real people, real lives changed. Not abstract statistics, but individuals who'd been helped because someone had chosen to care. Your daughter graduates medical school next year, Scarlett said. Yeah, top of her class, apparently. I still don't know how that happened. She wanted to help people, like her parents taught her. Scarlett was quiet for a moment. Are you coming to the graduation? Of course, why wouldn't I? I meant, will you bring a date? Ethan turned to look at her. Are you asking if I'm seeing anyone? I'm asking if you'd consider seeing someone. Specifically, hypothetically. Scarlett's face was slightly flushed. If that someone asked, after 10 years of working together, you're going to make this awkward now? I'm making it honest. There's a difference. Ethan thought about his wife, about the promise he'd made at her funeral to take care of their daughter and honor her memory. He'd done that. Lily was healthy, happy, pursuing her dreams. He'd also spent 10 years building something meaningful with Scarlett. Not just a working relationship, but a real partnership based on trust and shared values. His wife had always said the best way to honor her memory was to keep living, to keep helping people, to keep choosing hope even when things were hard. Yes, Ethan said, I would consider seeing someone, if they asked, hypothetically. Scarlett smiled. Good to know. They stood together in the lobby, looking at the photos of lives changed and systems improved. Outside, the city continued its daily rhythm. People working, loving, struggling, surviving. Somewhere out there, another person was probably being failed by a system designed to help them. Another patient was being dismissed. Another voice was being silenced. But also somewhere out there, someone was paying attention. Someone was asking uncomfortable questions. Someone was refusing to look away from injustice. And that made all the difference. Ethan had learned that truth the hard way. Power protected power. Systems resisted change. And speaking up was often dangerous and rarely rewarded. But sometimes, just sometimes, courage mattered more than credentials. Sometimes the truth won out over reputation. Sometimes ordinary people doing the right thing could change everything. It didn't always work. The world wasn't fair and justice wasn't guaranteed. But it was worth fighting for anyway. Because the alternative, staying silent, looking away, protecting yourself while others suffered, that wasn't really safety. It was just a different kind of prison. Scarlett had learned that lesson in her wheelchair, trapped by someone who was supposed to heal her. Ethan had learned it watching his wife die while insurance companies debated coverage. Lily would learn it in medical school, seeing firsthand how systems failed the people they were meant to serve. And maybe, hopefully, they'd all remember that the solution wasn't perfect systems or flawless heroes. It was just people, flawed and frightened and trying anyway, who chose to speak up when something was wrong. That was enough. It had to be enough. Because it was all any of them really had.